All right, guys, welcome to the Tuesday Nighter here at Fish North Georgia. We're glad you guys can join us. And again, if you're watching at a later date, hey, we love you guys too. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube, you hit that like and subscribe button, click that notification bell. And again, as you guys join us in the comments, we got a great show for you tonight. We'll be able to answer your questions. We'll try to do everything we can. Got a really good panel here tonight. A lot of knowledge for you guys. We're going to be talking about May fly fishing in North Georgia. It's that time of year. We got some of the delayed harvest. They're getting ready to end. A lot of people are getting out on the rivers. We might have to hike a little bit farther in for some of the better spots, but it's that time of year where we're going to go stalk trout. And so I'm going to introduce all the guys I've got on tonight. Oh, we're kicking up on our speakers here for some reason. I'm getting that good old feedback. But anyway, guys, so listen, hey, a lot of good stuff in store. So I've got Nathan Scheiber here again, and he's a part-time guide, blue line angler, as we like to say.
Blue line fly fishery.
Blue line fly fishery. I've got John Davidson here. Good grief, I done got you're John. Make sure for last time. You were over here the last time, so got him in, private landowner again, along with Gerard Gunthert. I got your name right this time, right? So there, he's here, and also we're piping in. Pull up this beautiful face right there. We've got Tad Murdock right there, Georgia Wild Trout. So a lot of great guys surrounding me right here. And definitely what we want to do is we want to get in a good informational podcast tonight for you guys so that when you're out on the water, you're really equipped with what's going on, what you can throw to have the most success. So, and that's what this is all about. So we'll just get it started right here. Nathan, I'm going to throw it right to you at the beginning.
Yeah, man.
What are we seeing on the water right now?
Oh, man. Early morning, late afternoon, you're getting real good caddis hatches. The activity this year, I think I was talking to Tad earlier this week, and the bug activity this year is insane. So you're getting a lot of fly action out there.
A lot of fly action.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, caddis, mayflies.
Caddis and mayflies. Yeah. All right, Tad, you spent quite a few minutes on the water this week. So what are you seeing out there? What's up, Cam?
The caddis, like they're saying, I don't know if there's as many as the other bugs out there, but nothing turns the trout on faster than those caddis. You know, they see 50 caddis and they'll start eating them. They have to see a few hundred of the other bugs before they start eating them. It seems like, so they just turn on faster. They're a little more tantalizing. But yeah, plenty of quills. Even still some blue wing olives, which is kind of odd. Then we're starting to see some of the sulfurs, some of the lighter, more yellow bugs. You know, you got your yellow sallies, the small yellow stone flies hopping around. Right. They've been this past week, they've really been coming off. Again, I don't really see the trout eating them, but just bug activity in general gets these trout starting to key in on the naturals a little bit quicker. And that's what I'm seeing, even from the stockfish. They're making that transition over to knowing what, you know, the natural food is a lot quicker. So they're not falling for the old junk flies, mop jigs, squirmy worms, eggs quite as long as they normally
would. They've definitely been looking up for sure. With, like I said, late morning, early or late afternoon, late morning, late afternoon is really the key. And that's where we're starting to see a ton of these flies coming. And I was standing up in the middle of the mountains, nobody around me. I'm looking around and it's just like these bugs, yellow, I guess we're looking at yellow stoneflies, I guess, just flowing all around everywhere. It was nuts. Like, what is going on?
Right.
And when I talked to him, like I said, it was just, we both thought we have been seeing kind of more bugs this year. So
what's interesting, and again, comment section, Farmer, what's up, buddy? Glad you could join us tonight. And I'm gonna get to you two guys real quick and ask what you guys have been seeing. But none of the other shows that I do, we talk so much about bugs. This is all new to me, getting into fly fishing. And I'm sure somebody's gonna be watching this at a later date, and they're gonna be like, what are they talking about? You just railed off quite a few different types of insects. And so I'm going to throw it to you two guys. Either one of you guys can answer. You know, what has been the predominant pattern that you guys have been fishing here lately as far as up on your property in Lumpkin County? What are you guys seeing?
I think we're seeing a lot of stonefly activity and seeing them out of the water, in the water. Mm-hmm. You know, the fish eat, I don't know, Tad, you want to chime in here? You too, Nathan. They eat 90% of their food is underwater, right? Or submerged at some point.
Yeah.
So this time of year, the stoneflies have been really great. Seeing them out of the water, seeing them under rocks. You can go to any stream, flip over rocks, and that's where you start to see the various stages of larvae. And we've just seen a lot of big stoneflies.
A lot of big stoneflies.
Definitely seen caddis hatch too, but the topography generally has some effect on what flies you're going to be seeing. So as you get farther up in the mountains, you see a little bit different insect than we're going to see down here. So
yeah, I think where we're fishing, generally we're not seeing as much dry activity.
Right.
A lot of the pats are, been very active. But we also saw this past weekend, we had been killing it with pats, stoneflies, and soft hackle, nymphs, everything. And then this weekend, it just kind of went cold for a little bit. And although the worms are not, as much fun to catch things on, they were on.
They were on.
Yeah.
You got to throw out what they're
after it rains.
doing.
Yeah, if it rains especially,
so it's
that's what gets washed into the river,
plan.
right?
Yeah. Last couple of weeks, we also had that new moon coming in, and we saw that the 3/4 to that full moon, and the worm bite has been, as crazy it is to say, it's like the worm bite was on.
The worm bite was on.
Well, it's a great backup plan.
Yeah,
when other things
it
aren't
really
working.
is. It really
Throw
is.
the worm.
Yeah.
Got a comment section. So Big Al has now infiltrated our Tuesday nighters. For those you guys probably don't know that, but on Thursday night, Big Al with the National Professional Fishing League likes to give us a babe from the past, from the 80s. And so his selection tonight is Kim Basinger. So I
Big Al,
Georgia girl,
welcome,
right?
dude.
Yeah,
Very
so,
cool.
Yeah, so he loves doing that stuff. And Al, I love you. I appreciate you joining us like that. Every Thursday night I can count.
Very Van Halen-esque.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, so that's where we're from.
you go.
That's our time period. Question for all you guys. Farmer wants to know, how do you see the cicada mega hatch messing with the trout? And Tad, I'll let you jump in on that one.
So the cicadas, from what I heard this year, they're going to be a little bit further south. It's not going to be that Brood X that we had a few years back where they're up in North Georgia. It's going to be more of a factor maybe on the lower hooch, around Morgan Falls area. But even then, it's going to be more of a thing on, the shoal bass fisheries.
So more for the bass guys.
Yeah. The bass guys are going to see more of it than the trout guys, I believe, this year. From what I've heard.
Right. And so Nathan and I were talking about that before the show, and I asked him basically that same question that Farmer just asked. I'm definitely, learning my bugs, of course, and that's the one that's been in the news,
Dude, absolutely.
It's like the end of the world.
Have 6 or 7 in your box. Just there's days that you could go out on the Etowah right down the road. You could go on the Amicalola right down the road. You can go on the Chattahoochee. I mean, these things are still popping out everywhere. They're going nuts.
I haven't seen one yet. Have you seen one yet?
I think we're a bit early. It's supposed to be early May.
Yeah,
I heard it was all going to be a little further north than us. So kind of like, I guess, against what you're saying, Tad, like the big hatch was happening in Tennessee, and then we were just like the very southernmost kind of intersection of them was just barely hitting North Georgia.
There's 2. There's a 13-year and a 17-year that are coinciding.
Correct. Yeah.
But one of them is further south. That is kind of making to Atlanta, like for that kind of area.
Okay.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I didn't either. Yeah, I thought we were just the furthest south that it was going to kind of come. This year,
I think that's the other one. We just happen to be kind of in the middle of
in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Either way, I would say as a trout fisherman, have some nice cicada foam topwater flies. They're great. You can hang a dump truck off of them. Like literally, you can hang 17 flies off of it. But they, when they're on, the trout literally have full bellies of cicadas. It's nuts.
Okay, makes sense. What was you saying, Tad?
And the other one, less popular, but the carp fisheries. If you know a little carp hole, and it's not the beginning of the cicada. When you start hearing the cicadas, it's not when the fish are on them. It's the tail end of that big cicada push where they know what those cicadas are, because it takes them a while. Those things really aren't falling in the water the first 2-3 weeks they're hatched. It's those latter weeks that they
get over.
Yeah,
when it becomes mainstream food to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What's up, David Weaver?
Yeah.
So I do remember going on a guided striper trip. And we're talking about 10 years ago, or it might have even been 13, like whatever you said. And they had a hatch or something up there, and just the noise that those bugs make. That's the only experience I've ever had. And then I noticed that the news reports say a lot of it's like, we're talking Illinois, they're getting the real mega blowout into the world bug, biblical
Yard
hatch
crawling.
Yeah,
hatches.
yeah,
their yard is
locusts.
moving. Yeah, locusts.
Dogs living with cats.
That's right. So Bobby Underwood right there. Hey, I ain't seen your name in a while, Bobby. Appreciate you joining us. 7-weight rod and a Cicada fly on the lake is awesome. So again, back on the lake, bass, brim, I'm sure like that. So
Carp
I
too.
just
Carp,
carp.
Tad's 100% right.
Henry Cowan. This is about the time of year Henry Cowan would always switch over from his Lake Lanier striper fly fishing to going for carp down in on the hooch down in town. And he says that's some of the most. Have you ever done that?
Not intentionally.
Not intentionally. Well, he targets them with the fly rod.
Sure, you see them.
Yeah, he sees them.
And what's he catch them on?
He sight cast them.
So Tad, maybe you know that. What would something like that be? I know we're talking carp.
Woolly buggers, small nymphs. You're crawling them on the bottom. But like I said, if a cicada hatch is going on, they're not afraid to come to the top. If you see them start to munch up there. But normally it's going to be down on the bottom. You're just looking for them tailing, kind of like redfish, or maybe they're up on the beds, or when they're spawning up shallow. But right there.
They turn up the mud when they're tailing. You can see them. I live right on the Chattahoochee at Soap Creek, and when they're tailing, you can see the mud behind them as they're churning the bottom up.
Making it up.
Yeah, you can.
Any of those creek tributaries on the hooch will have a few of them in there, along with those the suckers and all that stuff. There'll be quite a few of those in there too, and they'll all eat the same thing. They'll eat nymphs if you're crawling them in the mud.
Yeah, I know that Henry was talking about, and we'll get back to the trout here in a second, but I know he was talking about almost like in the flats where they're you've got a boat with a raised platform, and you got a guy behind up there with a stick, and he's going down the hooch saying, there's one, and it's almost like a sight kind of thing, casting to it. And he said you got to have your casting on perfectly to place it, because they're very picky. But if you put it in the right spot, he said it's a lot of fun. So never done it, but maybe that with the cicadas coming out, that might be something you guys can do. Now I want to start with this because again, I'm just getting into fly fishing, and so this is for me. I want to know this, and we'll start off over here and we'll work our way around. A novice fly angler right now going into, say, a public stretch of water, say Amicalola Creek up here, the delayed harvest is getting ready to end. But if I wanted to go out there, what would you have on right now to target even stalkers?
I mean, I'd be watching for the dry fly hatch to see how it's going on that particular day, but we've just been killing it Euro nymphing. So we're fishing on the bottom, bouncing it along the bottom. And if they're not hitting that, maybe you come up off it a little bit, but it's just putting it right in front of them and let it sweep on by.
So what fly are you using to bounce right now? Give me a pattern.
I mean, Pat's rubber legs. Again, it's right back to the beginning conversation. That's what they're hitting, because those are the flies that are in the water, and they're big, and they're a substantial meal for them.
Right. Did you have a pick? You gave us a couple picks. Was that any of those of us?
Yeah. So that the one photo I sent, I don't know if we can pull that up.
We can. We got them on
that
here.
Would be an amazing. Let's go to that one.
That one right
there. So
there.
that is a perfect representation. I believe, Tad, you can correct me. That's like what we would consider like a salmon fly, right?
It's either a salmon fly or a giant stone.
Giant stone. It almost.
In
Georgia, that's pretty freaking rare. That's huge.
Yeah,
it almost freaked me out where I was like, whoa, what is that? Like, why is that so big?
They're not as rare as you think, depending on where you are. There's
for sure. I guess I would expect 95% of anglers to not ever really see those, but it's those those 5% of us that are really turning over every rock, every day, every stream,
you won't find them as much on rocks. Wood.
So that would be that perfect.
They love wood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of every time like you get hooked, everybody's like, "Oh, I hooked on a stick or a stick fish and a log fish." And I'm like, "No, grab that log, look at it. That's where they're living." Like I've literally found crawfish tucked up in like almost like the wood fibers, like where it's kind of rotting away from being in the stream for
And they're
so
just
long,
buried
and
in
they're
there?
just burying themselves in there. And it's these crawfish who are just sitting there, just picking little bugs off that are living on those logs. Those are probably that, and like, anything with like leaves or anything that's still living in the river, like you hook onto that and you're able to pull that out. Man, that is a treasure trove of information, like looking at that like brush that's in the water.
Yeah.
But for me, like the stonefly, just because of I pulled out that photo last week.
Right.
So that is what's happening in Georgia right now. And for me, so stonefly, and then I would always start with, just because of the moon phase right now, you're always looking for a full moon. These worms are going to start popping out a little more on the rivers. And I've always heard that. I don't know if that's a thing. Please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But as you get towards a full moon, you're always trying to throw some worms. So I would always start with that. And then from there, that stonefly is really going to get me down and be heavy. It's going to get me down in that water column, because just as important as selecting the right bug, it's also selecting, how deep you are in that water column. And at any given time in Georgia, depending on, how crazy our weather is, and if we have these crazy cold spells, and like this week, it's going to rain for a bunch of time, a bunch of days, and then it's going to be hot as crap. But last week it was, getting, 40s, low 40s, high 30s at night. So, these trout are going to sit there and move in the water column. So for me, it's not just bug selection, but how deep you're going. And that's going to prove to, show you a lot more success if you can find where they're at in the column and put these certain bugs that we know are just Georgia producers.
Right.
And,
certainly
you're putting it in their face. Yeah.
But certainly as the water warms up, you should always try streamering as well.
Absolutely.
Just because if you put a big meal in front of them and strip it off, they chase it right up out of the water.
I was hoping my man John over here would hit us with some meat knowledge and say, I love you guys as bugs, but I'm trying to catch a beast.
if I'm a novice,
Yes,
I would I'm in like a publicly stocked area like the Emmy.
We're talking to
Amicalola.
you right now.
that's right. You're talking to me. Yeah.
And I just want to get on fish.
Agreed. Yeah.
I would, like, a black woolly bugger is an appropriation or approximation of a stonefly. And it can be something similar to that. Would be like a Pat's that looks like a black woolly bugger with legs on it. So they're fairly easy to identify. You go to your local fly shop or kind of anywhere, and you're going to see black woolly buggers. Some times of year, sometimes different colors are more effective, but a black woolly bugger right now is probably as good as it's going to get in just about any stream. But also, as the caddis are coming, something like a hare's ear, which is like a shorter nymph, but lighter color, like a tanner color, more tan color. Some of these. So if this is a caddis right here, that's a dry fly. Underneath the surface, a lighter color like a tan, a bead head,
Right.
Hare's ears, really effective in most North Georgia mountain streams. And the reality is that pellet fed fish, as they're making this transition to finding natural food, are still they're pretty dumb.
Yeah.
And so and the way they eat are going to be fairly territorial and aggressive because they're really hungry. So anything that looks like a bug, they're going to go for. And there's a preponderance of caddisflies and all that. So if I'm a novice, I'm going to stick to those bigger things. They're easier to handle. The smaller flies, if you got a really small, let's say prince nymph or something, another common fly, or just a shorter buggers, they're harder to see. They're harder to tie on. So a woolly bugger, like a 12 or 14 is a pretty common size. It's going to be reasonably effective for smart fish and dumb fish.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things that I've been doing for 30 years. If I don't know what I'm doing at all, and then I'm going to try one of those, because universally those colors are effective they're effective all around the country.
Absolutely.
So you can start with those. There are other sort of easier patterns that are common, and you'll find at any kind of fly shop, or even a shop that doesn't specialize in flies.
Right.
That's why I gravitate toward those. And the other thing we haven't talked about this, but I'm curious about Tad and Nathan's opinion about what weight of line to use, because when you get into fly fishing, there's the line is thinner or thicker.
Yes.
And we don't call it 8-pound test or 12-pound test or 4-pound test. We're fancy, so we have to call it something different, right?
Like Elon,
So,
we call it
which
X.
is just I don't understand why this came about. But I was wondering what you guys think. Like you, Tad, if you're taking a novice out, are you stringing up 6X? And no, you're not.
No.
Like,
So
what would you recommend?
That does not lead to success.
I very, 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 very rarely go smaller than 3X. Like
Really?
I've got to be throwing a size 18 or smaller to go to 4.
Really?
Only because that won't go through the hole.
5X, I'm throwing under a size 20. You don't need, in Georgia, you don't need it. They're not line shy. Unless you're finding fish that are just beat to death, none of them are line shy.
For where we're at, it's a weight issue. It's how fast do you want the nymph to get down? If you needed to get down a little faster, you go 5X. If you whatever. If you're throwing heavy
put weight on
4X and
you're not
the
trying to
fish
get
you're
that
on.
deep.
Yeah.
But this is kind of an interesting thing, Tad. Don't you think? Because if you go out west or sometimes up in the Northeast where trout tend to be spooked really easily, do you think that the spooking comes more from me tripping and falling and dropping my beer bottle in the water and yelling, or do you think it is from them not being able to see a 7X?
No, I think 95% of the time it's absolutely the people. I think there's a cultural thing in fly fishing where they think where most fly anglers think you need to go to the smallest X tippet because my theory is I think fly shops peddle it so they can sell more flies when people break off more often. Because
it's a conspiracy.
And you got to have 6 different kinds of X.
Because I see it very, very seldomly where I need to go down to really, really small tippet. If you're fishing
you're like
fast
trophy
water, you've got to get down and you've got to go a little bit smaller. 5X or smaller, but we don't have any of those streams here. So it's not appropriate, especially for beginners who are not the best at fighting fish, not the best at casting. It's going
to be a lot of it's going to be a lot of your flies way up in a tree up above you.
That right,
breaking
Tad?
them off when you cast.
Yeah.
Oh, Tad
heard
knows.
about people doing
he's
that.
Been on the water with me. He's picked many of them. Look at him. He's picked many of mine at a thing.
I throw 2 with Danny.
He does. He does. I'm gonna let you ask.
It's a great
this.
question.
Which one, farmers or cams?
I'm a farmer.
So we'll do farmers first, right there. No, going up to right there.
Yeah.
What is the name of the larva that wraps itself in small twigs? I find them all the time in slow areas of the creek and leaf beds.
Yeah.
Yep,
What'd you say?
Caddis.
Caddis.
Yeah, we call them cased caddis.
More particularly, that's going to be October caddis in the wood. Case caddis will be the small pebbles in the rocks.
Okay.
Most of the time,
what?
They'll do some like leaf.
Wow, you're so smart, Tad.
This is like Jeopardy.
Jeez, Tad, you're so smart. I thought they were all just like we're all cased caddis. Like I'm getting schooled, man.
No. The case caddis will do the.
Guys, follow that man. He is ridiculously smart.
Yeah, so Georgia Wild Trout. I'm going to have the link in the description. And go ahead and answer this next one. Okay, you got more?
Well, I was going to say, kind of back to what you were talking about the flies. If you're subsurface, it's more about getting down and getting a good drift. You can throw any fly in the box.
Presentation's a lot more important.
Doesn't matter, stonefly, caddis, etc.
It gets to points where you find what color they won't go after. And it's getting down to them, like what I was saying.
Put it in their face.
Yeah. And the great thing about this time of year, and especially in May, there's opportunities for, the anglers who want to improve, get better, put themselves in tougher conditions. There's been an opportunity every day I've been out for the past 2 weeks where they start coming to the surface and either hit emergers or dry flies. And if you can figure out what they're eating, you can get a really cool dry fly or surface bite when others are still plugging away with their, junk flies or, various other nymphs that a lot of people miss out on. Like even the private waters, there's been so many bugs this year. The fish on the private waters have gotten trained to the hatches already and kind of what's been emerging. And I've had opportunities on private water every time I've been in the last two, maybe even 3 weeks.
I blew John's mind on Monday.
Yep.
And he was like, no way they're biting topwater. I was like, dude, these trout are coming out of the water as the caddis is basically bouncing on the top as I'm going to rethrow and recast. And he's just like, no, they're not. And I was like, yeah.
I guarantee you it's happened in the past 2 weeks. I've seen it everywhere from Clarksville all the way out to Blue Ridge. It's happened on all of them. So
Okay.
I guess we'll have to try it in the morning.
That's right.
I went mid-morning to afternoon. I went. It's not like a morning hatch thing. It's been the little bit of high water, that rain we had today. Tomorrow should be good around mid-morning as that water drops off a little bit.
All right. Well, I got you pulled up. Let's go ahead and do Cam's question right there. And basically, I can generalize it as this: are trout more picky about color than bass as far as matching the hatch, or is it looked too far into? Do we pay too much attention to that?
I'd say too much attention for the most part. Now, when I go to color with trout, it's more of a hue thing, right? Especially with dry flies. Like if there's darker flies hatching, I'm throwing darker shades, browns, blacks, dark grays, stuff like that. If it's lighter flies, say your sulfurs or something like that, I'd go with the tan, manila, yellow, just those lighter colors.
Get in the ballpark and make sure your drift is flawless.
It's presentation.
When your presentation is flawless, that leads to more bites.
Drifting with dry fly size and profile are way, way, way more important and way more overlooked than color.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. If you're throwing like a number 8 on a Brook trout stream, like
right. Okay.
Nothing's going to hit. Yeah.
I'm still learning all that.
Yeah.
Robert Woody wants to know, what's the larvae that's white and bigger than your little finger? I used to find them in larger trout.
So some of that's there's two. I see them a lot on the Carticay watershed. I think they're Dobson flies.
Okay.
Or those are Hilgermites. There's one more. The crane fly larva will also
kind
of look like that as well.
Interesting. I have no idea about all the bugs. I'm learning this as you guys are talking.
Yeah, I know we used to find the Dobson fly larva and the crane fly larva on. Yeah, those white manila tan mop jigs right there.
Rushes.
That and those October caddis is the only thing I can think of a mop jig possibly look like, other than cigarette butts.
Well, yeah, I guess so.
The old redneck trout bait.
Hey, if it works, it works. Guys catch bass on bacon.
The North Georgia mop fly is just
it's a cigarette butt.
Put a cigarette on it.
Butt. And then you got to worry,
which brand?
Filtered, unfiltered? Is it menthol?
Parliament?
Whatever. So you were talking about going in the morning. And again, you guys have a stretch on the Etowah. Beautiful. Can't wait for you guys to see it. What are you going to be doing first thing in the morning? Since you just heard Tad say that, possible dry fly might be mid-morning and later on. I don't know what time you plan on getting there, but if you get there earlier than that, what are you going to do?
Well, we're going to go over tonight, but we have to leave reasonably early to be back for an appointment in town. So we won't be there to try flying at the right time.
Just going to hit it.
We got a couple hours. We're going to do it because we're there.
Hey, I don't blame you. Yeah, absolutely.
Opportunity fishing.
All right. So, Tad, this is going to go to you because I know how much you love this fly. What is a mop fly and how is it used? Yeah. And I'll tell you this again, I'm learning, and I've been on the water with Tad quite a few times now. And it's one of those patterns that first of all, he suggested we carry in the shop because he says you can catch fish on it all the time. But just to explain what a mop fly is, and I can hold it up right here. If you can notice off the back of my hand right there, it's got black fur, but it's just like almost like a yarn kind of thing on the back. Hackle.
Yeah. It's the same type of material as you'd snip off the tip of a mop strand, or it's just a yarn,
right?
And then you can put dubbing on the top of it. You can not. It doesn't matter. Like I said, we've heard my best two guesses of what it looks like. Either those crane fly larvae or maybe some October caddis.
Right.
Whatever it is, it looks juicy and full of protein, and the trout have a really hard time saying no.
I've even seen caterpillars that have fallen off the trees that once they sit in the water for 5, 10, 15 minutes, they start to turn white in this like really pale green color that we throw because it may have been like some sort of green worm. And once they sit in the water, they are literally like that. And then if you can somehow get a hook attached to that,
the hardest
natural food. Yeah.
The hardest thing to do with them is a lot of times they're underweighted when you out of the fly shop or when you buy them. I tie my own, so I weight the crap out of them just to get them down to the bottom if we're using them. But you might have to use them with split shot if you're buying them from a shop. But getting them down in heavier currents can be tough. But the quicker you get them down to the bottom, the quicker they're hunting. And if it's a fish that's remotely hungry, he's gonna take a swing at it.
Gonna hit it. Farmer wants to know, and you guys all can chime in because you might all use something different. What weight fly rod do y'all use on this North Georgia streams and rivers? Now, I would imagine you probably use something different on the Chattahoochee being bigger than you would say blue lining.
No.
You wouldn't, Tad?
Farmer, that's a loaded question.
Is it loaded?
Yeah.
That's
I don't know.
dude.
That's what I'm asking.
Absolutely. It's a great question.
Weight. Yeah, 9'5" weight gets it all done. You don't. It's the only one you need.
No, that's not true.
8'6" weight.
Your wife needs to know, or your significant other needs to know you need 12 fly rods.
Right.
One of every weight.
You need
Right.
them all.
I get that.
I would vote 9 weight or 9 feet fly weight. 5
9
weight for
foot
sure.
5 weight for all of your big delayed harvest rivers and creeks. And then, if you're going, we have a ton of wild and native trout streams, and I don't think you need anything longer than a 7.5 foot 3 weight for that.
You talking about going up blue line
and then doing small creek, and there's a ton of that in Georgia.
I can change your mind on that one.
I know, dude.
Ask Danny. I've shown him why.
It's so much like climbing and
Well,
I don't know. It's bushwhacking, and
if
there's no way I'm carrying a 10-foot rod.
Well, if you're a glutton for rhododendron punishment, maybe. But on it, even not 50% of the brook trout streams, you can having that little bit of extra length for a bow and arrow cast.
That's it. Right
that is true. That
is absolutely essential.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just be sneakier and get closer.
It's easier to roll cast with a longer rod too.
I take too many beginners up there, so I got
for sure. If you're doing that, then yeah.
What about you? Not you still?
I guess I'm a glutton for the rhododendrons. I'll take an 11 foot on the Nuntutla. You can bow and arrow cast that thing like
fine,
20 feet.
Guys, fine.
Yeah, so
but if your wife, if you only have permission to have one fly rod,
9'5" weight,
and you can't figure out a way to change that permission, then get a 9-footer or an 8.5 foot 5 weight. You can go anywhere. You can go to the ocean with that thing. You really can.
Okay.
Now you're not going to catch a 20-pound fish with it. It's going to be rough, but
I got you.
around here,
yeah,
that's all you need.
All right. So David Weaver, good questions tonight, buddy. I appreciate you more than you know. So would you use? And I guess we're back on the mop. Mm-hmm. Would you use it as the bottom fly on a double drop, or would you drop something off of that?
No, I would use it as a weighted attractor fly, and then I would hang something really tiny off the bottom of it.
I think I've told you this, Danny. I treat it like a Carolina rig, right?
You do
for the bass fishing guys out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The mop jig is up front. I like it heavier getting down, and then I'll trail something neutrally buoyant or much lighter off the back. That's not going to get hung in rocks as it goes down.
And that's where you can play two parts of the water column at the same time, because that mop fly is going to get really high down. And if you trail something, 1.5 feet, 2 feet off the back, with zero weight on it, it's going to float up much higher. So now your first fly is actually down in the bottom of the water column, while your last fly is actually in the middle of the column.
What did we use, Tad?
In a perfect scenario,
when we went out up north in Montana, is that basically the hopper and the dropper, except for the hopper's on top, right?
Yeah. You just use hopper dropper. Yeah, different rig. What we would be using with this mop jig we're describing is an indicator rig. For the most part, we're throwing an indicator above it. Yeah. When drop 2 flies below a hopper, good way to lose 2 flies at once.
Well,
it gets messy.
The way I cast, that's why he's saying that. So Dane Hunter, this is for you, Tad. He just wants to know it's hard to listen to an LSU fan.
I was going to say, who's the LSU fan? And I look up.
Look right there. He is a Tiger, but he is the smartest guy. One of the smartest guys I know. I don't know if you guys, if Nathan cued you in, this joker right here, and for those of you watching, Tad's doing what I basically call the world slam. He is trying to catch every species of trout across the world. He spent some time
Morocco tomorrow.
Going to Morocco tomorrow. It was Turkey. You've been to Turkey, all kinds of crazy places.
Japan. Southern
Yeah.
Europe.
He is trying to
Ireland.
catch every single species that he can of
I'm
the
jealous.
trout
I'm
family.
very
I'm
jealous.
It's very
super
cool to
jealous.
see his pictures and all that.
So what kind of trout are in Morocco?
There's three or four brown trout relatives. They're similar to brown trout. They're their own. They're kind of, two of them are stuck. It's the only. They each live in a lake. The only place you can find them in the world. They're probably the rarest two trout in the world. And then there's a couple that live in some small streams way up in the Atlas Mountains up there.
What a nerd.
It's not a nerd. I think it's cool.
No, I love it. I love it.
I mean, I would love to do that, but it was last year you were in Turkey, right?
Yes, yeah, I did turkey.
Yeah, and he sends back, and a lot of people think they don't realize that you get out in the country, like it doesn't matter what country, and if you can get out away from the cities, some of the most beautiful pictures I've seen is some of the ones that he posted. Mm-hmm. It's like one of the reasons that people like to fly fish. You try to get off the beaten path a little bit, out in nature a little bit, and it's incredible. So you guys definitely, it's Georgia Wild Trout on Facebook, right?
Yep,
as well.
Yep.
So you guys he posts those pictures there all the time. So looking forward to seeing your pictures from Morocco. What time you leave?
Mid-afternoon. So
Mid-afternoon.
Three-ish.
How long is the flight?
It's like 6 or 7 to France, and then an hour and a half to.
Okay, that's not too bad.
Casablanca.
That's not terrible.
No.
Pull Farmer back up right there. Let's go with this. Going off the mop jig with a dropper. When do we start with like a grasshopper with a dropper? Now, when I was in Montana, we were there. What, Josh? September?
Now
it was September-ish, right in there. So that was a late season thing in Montana. What about in Georgia?
Farmer, I think we got our wires crossed. So the mop fly will be actually the first dropper off of, say, your hopper, your grasshopper, or I like to throw like a chubby Chernobyl, something real big, foamy, flashy, so I can really see it. Not necessarily that a trout is going to go for that, but if they do go for that, then there's a hook on it. But your mop fly is going to be your first fly on the bottom, and then off of that, we would be doing I guess technically a double dropper rig, where we would throw something much lighter. So as that mop fly goes down, that second fly is kind of hanging here weightless up above it. So now you're in 2 columns. So I think he was thinking that we were calling the mop fly the actual hopper.
Okay, well maybe I read the question wrong. I was thinking he was talking about when we start going top water with like the grasshoppers. Like that's what I was thinking. Out in Montana, we used a hopper as our indicator. We didn't have an indicator. That was what basically was like a dry.
That's basically what we're doing here. The same thing in Georgia.
But when do we start?
We were just putting it under an indicator, which is I think what Tad was saying, which is what I usually do, because if you got 3 flies on, most people are going to make a mess out of that.
Literally, I mean, as soon as it's 50, 60 degrees outside, or
all right.
Other than that, wintertime, it's really an indicator, like a foam indicator, which most people would call a bobber.
It is a bobber.
Yeah, whatever.
Damn bobber. I don't know what you guys call it.
You're not going to culture me
you're
that
getting everybody
much.
Fired up.
You're not going to culture me that much. All right.
So now's the time for that hopper. It's kind of already started. Yes. The wild fish, they don't hit it as well here. The hopper's usually a little bit too big. If you can find a smaller one, that's fine. But you can also get in some other dry flies that float better than some of the smaller hoppers out there.
Do you think that fish in North Georgia, trout in particular, do you think they see a lot of hoppers?
Not really.
In the water. It's not like it is out west where there's the wind's blowing them into the water all the time. And
that's it.
It's just, I think most of the trout water here is protected by trees, and hoppers tend to live in fields and long grass. So it's rare that you have that sort of savanna like. I mean, there are some places in North Georgia where it happens.
But I understand what you're saying. Yeah. In Montana, since you mentioned that, on the Madison, it's basically high grass all the way, where the glacier went through and cut everything. So you have the mountains, you come down to a valley, you got these little grass fields and everything, and then there's the river. It's a totally different situation.
Yeah, I think out here it would be more like wasps. Yellow jackets and wasps would be like,
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about, and this is for my personal edification here, streamers. Everybody say woolly booger. I know that, but when is a streamer a year-round pattern, or is that something going into the late spring here that it becomes more prevalent? Are they hunting more right now, or are they getting ready to start hunting less?
We wore it out on them. We wore them out on it today when that water went up with the rains we had.
Yeah.
You can throw them any time of year. There's not a bad time. Fall might be the toughest with low, clear water. You really have to stalk in that situation, but any time of year is fine. High water being, kind of optimal there.
I know you guys love the top water bite on a dry, but there's something about a streamer just getting
Holy crap, that's
just
fun.
getting belted.
Getting crushed.
Yeah, in Michigan, that's all we threw on the 2-day float we went on. Now my fingers were sore because that line he used was sinking line that I don't think we use as much down here, but just stripping. But when those things would come out from under a blowdown anywhere and just come up and just crush it.
It's the closest
was
thing.
awesome.
It's the closest thing to like
Bass fishing. That's what I was going to say.
It's
very
that,
similar.
It's the,
Which is why I like it.
Yep.
It's the closest thing to feeling that like dun 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 that you feel on your rod, and everybody's going to know what I mean. They're going to feel that as soon as I say dun 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 dun. They know that. With trout fishing, a lot of times you're just watching our indicator or our hopper, and that we're watching for it to drop, and then we're setting, and there's enough slack that you're never going to feel it. And I get that a lot with clients. They're like, well, I didn't feel it. And I was like, well, you're not going to. That's why we have an indicator, and that's going to show you that the trout has it in his mouth. And with streamer fishing, I think it's the closest to bass fishing where you feel that bump, 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 bump.
The double
and
tug.
you're ripping it, and then it's on because that trout is pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. But now let me ask you this. I know everybody talks about the woolly boogers, and it's always the green or the black. What about, I guess fish patterns? When we get, in bass fishing, we always are trying to match the bait fish. Now, if you're using a green or a black, say woolly booger, what are we matching there as opposed to if I put on, say, one that's got a little more shine to it?
So I'd say there's kind of two methods or kind of two approaches. If you're considering a woolly bugger, a streamer, it doesn't really matter what the color is. You can kind of get away with anything. As you size up, you maybe want to match, whatever that forage base you're trying to imitate is.
Okay.
You got sculpins in the water as far as sizing up, but anything down below, you're really just trying to initiate like a reaction strike, a primal instinct in that trout. And they will literally, they'll chase it completely across the creek, even though like you may have a mop fly, but because you swung it just in the right way, or you brought it just in front of it and twitched it just at the right time, that trout's going to follow it all the way until it comes out of the water.
And that's the way for the bass guys out there, think of it as a lipless crankbait or a jerkbait, right? So it doesn't, with those two baits, it doesn't so much matter what your color is. You're getting reaction strike. They're going to react to it just out of their predatory instinct. Okay. So color is kind of sits back. See, and like with trout, there's some crazy color streamers out there like chartreuse purple, like, just fluorescent orange, pink. And they're just there to aggravate those trout, especially, when you get into smaller patterns. But like, as you get bigger, maybe on the hooch, maybe you want it to look like, one of the creek chubs or a stalker rainbow, you maybe pick those color schemes out for it.
Okay. All right. So Blake's got a question. I'm going to repeat it.
So say, we had the different colored streamers or woolly boogers.
Right.
Basically, all you need is a black and green. Don't even try throwing a bait fish color.
Can you hear that? So what Blake want to know is, do you basically just stick to a black and a green on the trout streams as opposed to just doing all the other stuff?
You can. A white, sometimes contrast is good. Sometimes throwing something that everybody else isn't throwing is good. I literally have black, green, and then this weird, I call it like a clown yellow pink look.
I lost one of his green ones. He still.
Yeah, I got a question for you, Tad. Like, when you're working, when do you decide to throw a streamer? Is it like, let's throw a streamer first, or is it water? Is it speed of water? When do you go to that?
So you've all seen especially with stalkers, for example, when trying to playing grab ass, when they're chasing each other around the pool and don't really care about the nymphs you're throwing. That's when I throw the streamer, because they're already aggravated with each other. You throw something else in there that's going to aggravate them, it's guaranteed.
And at that point,
but if you're a beginner, you're a novice, or you've been doing it for a year or two, and you hear about this streamer thing, and you've been a bass fisherman or something like that, and at what point of the day, even if you're alone, is it just like, hey, I got 4 clients, I'm going to put one on a streamer, just see what happens, or is it, nothing else is working. Like, what goes through your head to make that
what's
decision?
making right there?
So if they want to learn to throw a streamer, I'm probably going to choose. North Carolina is probably going to be a better bet. You want to go for fish that are, if you're going for the bigger fish, right?
Mhm.
So, it depends on what your target is, what your mentality is. You can really break down
Just catching fish, because I'm a novice. I mean, I know the monster's in there, but I want to get on fish that day. Is that ever a thing? I'm like, damn it, nothing else is working.
I consider like woolly buggers, like Cincos and bass fishing. Anybody can catch a fish on them. There's no wrong way to fish it, but that's very different than going to chase, trophy trout or, big trout on the streamers and really learning how to throw one. Because how you break down a stream with while streamer fishing is completely different than how you would break it down nymphing, dry flies, etc.
Right.
So, just how you look at the water is different. You look at it more as a bass fisherman would. Where's this big fish? What cover they're going to use? What seam are they going to use? How is a trophy fish or a big fish going to stalk their prey on a given stretch of water? And you really need to be thinking about that. And then then you decide how you want to present that fly to them, whether it be cross current, straight upstream, straight downstream, et cetera, just on what the river's giving to you.
Okay.
So every time I go out, I bring 2 rods down to the river, and I've got a 4-weight, which I just broke on a big fish, or a 7-weight trout spay, 2-handed, and I swing giant articulating streamers off them, and I catch a fish 1 out of, 10% of the time I catch fish when they're hitting on the normal fly setup.
Right.
But when they do, it's something unusual.
Yeah.
It's something big, and it's wham. So basically, it's always, in my opinion, it's always something to try.
Yeah.
Because it's a different experience to catch that fish. And then it's like, hold on, because it's going to be something big,
absolutely.
and they're going nuts when they hit
absolutely.
And also, individual fish have different personalities. There's some of those big fish that don't care about the little nymphs, don't care about the small flies you're throwing, especially the really big ones.
Yeah.
And who are just, waiting for that one meal a week. And if you give them that one meal a week at the right time, it's a lot of times it's going to be a big
Yeah,
one.
that's why we name fish.
Yeah.
There's a place I guide at, and there's a fish called they're called James Brown, and it's like he only wants meat, and it doesn't matter. He's in the same spot every time forever. And
we got the meats.
if you got meat, he's ripping after it. And I remember somebody catching a little small creek chub and pulling it up, and then this gigantic 30-inch brown smashes this creek chub. There's clearly no hook big enough to hold this because it's inside of a creek chub. And just watching that person lose their mind and be like, oh, yeah, you gave him what he wanted. So
And that's it.
Yes, he took it.
He did. Pull up David Weaver right there above Farmer. Up a little bit more. Going up. I want to hit this one right here. I love to fish a B pattern as an indicator and a black ant as a dropper at Jones Bridge Park in the summer. Which, I guess at that time, we're talking about the hoppers popping off in certain areas. We got plenty of bees in Georgia, so that makes a lot of sense.
Good carpenter bee in the
and
water.
Black ants everywhere. Next question right there, Farmer's question right below that. Do you find the smaller streams around the North Georgia area that the submerged flies like a midge and a nymph outfish like a dry fly?
No.
You don't think so?
No. It's I would say 80-20 dry fly to nymph on smaller streams.
Really?
Well,
I would guess opposite.
and it can change through the year from April through December. The dry flies, or you can even narrow that down. We can say late May through October, dry flies win 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Really?
And there's no
Yeah.
reason to throw a dropper unless you want to just get hung up more than you need to, because
Correct.
chances are
Water's low.
Those streams are 1.5 feet deep. Most of those trout are willing to come to the surface.
Yeah, and if you're not really on your game and you know when to lift your rod just the tiniest bit to miss these small little snags underground that you've fished there a million times, so you know where they're all at. If you're not used to that, no, you're gonna get hung up a bunch. It's dry fly only for me at that point, and you're getting 80, 90 strikes a day. Okay,
well, look, for you two guys though, because I've been to your place. You heard Tad just say it's mostly 1.5 feet, and yours is a little bit deeper.
We have deep water, but I would say for the mountain streams, I agree with Nathan.
But what about where you're at?
We just don't. until Tad comes there and shows us properly how to fish for dries, and Nathan now apparently too.
Oh yeah, no.
Down where y'all are, I think where Farmer is referring to is further up north.
Yeah. I mean, but
it's
north
a
of us for
smaller-
sure, even in the
smaller
headwaters of the
stream.
Etowah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Danny, you're
either
comparing
Gerard and I
apples to
fished a
oranges.
lot of mountain streams
Well,
over the past
yeah.
25 years, and I think that dry
All
flies work
dries.
almost all year long.
Yeah,
But depending on how
it's
cold
so
it
much
is.
fun.
it is.
Yeah.
It is fun.
Yeah.
But you- it
It's
is.
the same as seeing a bass blow up on a frog. It's fucking nuts.
It's better.
Awesome.
Well,
Yeah.
but you know that I'm trying to absorb all this in, and I'm thinking what Tad just said. I've been up to the, way up in the hoots with Tad, so I've seen that low water he's talking about. But then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, where you guys have, especially that nice bend, it's deeper water. You're not visually seeing those trout. And I was just thinking how a dry would come through there as far as going down and getting
So
them.
there you're going down for them and on stock
Yeah.
shoot. You're
If it happens on top, that's why you have an indicator with a hook. It's such as a chubby Chernobyl, something big and foamy. And when it happens, you never see it coming because, like you said, they're down deep, and all of a sudden
And they're
it's just
coming up
like
yeah.
Well, see,
that's
where I
Free
would
Willy
get
coming out.
excited.
And you're like,
But-
holy crap! ah!"
But in June and July, you're not going to see that where we're fishing
Yeah,
because those fish are hunkered down.
but
Yeah,
and
'Cause the
and-
water's
they wanna
probably
stay cold.
66
Yeah,
degrees.
Well, how about this? And this is again, I'm thinking about y'all's place compared to some of the public places that I've been to. You guys have some really monster trout.
Mhm.
Is a smaller fish more apt? And Tad, you can jump on this, or any of you guys. Is a smaller trout more apt to come up than say what we call a trophy, 25+ inch trout?
So just in general, the wild trout have to be opportunistic. There's not enough food to go around for them in North Georgia.
For the wild trout,
Correct.
Yes, so they've got to eat whatever passes. They don't have an option. Whereas the trophy trout can buy their time. One, if they're eating pellets, they know dinner's coming at 6. With big browns, for example, on the hooch, those they eat once a week, so that they'll buy their time. They'll wait for their moment.
that's almost like muskie. When we went muskie fishing in Tennessee, the guy said, these big giant muskie will come out and they'll pop a 2 pound.
It-
2 pound smallmouth, and they're looking for one big, huge meal, and then they'll go lay back
No
under their
wheels.
log for days.
It's impressive how similar most river predators are. It doesn't matter.
It is.
Species.
Now
are.
that you said that.
they all act.
They're all, we call them river tuna.
River tuna. What
Yeah.
you need there, bud? Oh, he
A
needs
little dry.
give him a glass. So, how about this? Pull up David Weaver. David, you've been really good tonight with your questions. Keep them coming, man. You going up? No, I missed one of his on up. Keep on going right there. Do you guys fish for any other freshwater fish besides trout or carp? And I assume he's
Yes.
asking about on the fly.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah.
Everything on the fly.
Everything.
You can. I mean,
Dude,
yeah.
Bluegill. I think bluegill and crappie might be one of the funnest fish
Yeah.
on the fly.
Totally underrated.
It's like pulling in a kite in a hurricane, and it is so much fun. And they eat everything.
Yeah.
And they hit the dry flies.
They hit the
Yeah.
dry,
Like,
So you get a little bit
murder.
of
smoke
everything
your
we got.
dry fly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Smallest dry fly. I mean, you put it out there and put a worm under it with almost no weight, about 1.5 feet below it. You will catch 100 fish a day if you're going after bluegill.
Oh, yeah,
crappie.
for sure.
I mean, and upsetting your friends who have spin rods and just entire gear setups geared towards crappie and stuff. You will blow them out of the water with a fly rod.
Okay. That
So much
makes
fun.
sense.
I think I only do striper. I don't know. I never really thought about it, but yeah, I think striper the only one. I
Yeah,
see on the
you
fly.
do. And we got those opportunities here in North Georgia. For sure. Like
Oh,
that.
Yeah,
yeah.
in the hooch,
In the
right in the
hooch.
back,
Hooch.
right in the backyard.
They're
We've,
coming up right
we've
now.
done it, yeah.
Chestatee, all that. Anything coming out of Lake Lanier, all those big, creeks and rivers coming out of Lake Lanier. All those stripers are running up right now, and it's insane. We talked
Yeah.
about it on our last show.
Mhm.
They had just started. Now they're hot and heavy. People are,
Yeah.
watching them come up the creeks and stir up the mud, and they're catching the biggest, their personal best right now.
Yeah,
Right
okay.
now, it's crazy.
Makes total sense to me. Now, Cam's got a good question. And this is now he likes the bass fish. One up right there. There you
What's
go.
up, Cam?
In stained water, will you throw darker colors and clear water more natural?
Darker colors in stain water, and then
Kinda like
clear
what we do in
water,
bass
I'll throw
fishing.
some with a little flash to it as well.
Okay.
So yeah, more natural, but with a little more flash.
What
Yeah.
about you guys up there?
Yeah, I mean, definitely something with a little bit of flash or sparkle on it, just because they sense the movement when it moves or floats.
And I'm
by.
probably thinking we were talking about streamers. I think when that question was posed.
I would ask what the darker water is, right? Because if it's you're talking about darker water, you're pretty much only throwing moving baits in a river, right? They're not hitting nymphs when you've got less than 6 inches of visibility for the most part.
So you're trying to get that reaction bite, just like bass guys
Hitting
do.
them in the face.
Hit them in the face, bring them across
Kind
their
of.
face. All right,
Catching
absolutely.
their attention. Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, so David Weaver says, when I lived in New York to catch big browns, we would have a 1/8 Mr. Twister jig or a black and silver Rapala. This was way before I tried fly fishing. There are guys on the hooch right now that use conventional bass gear, and like they're using jerk baits, and they're using stuff we use, and they're going after those big.
Well,
trophy
Tad, you know
browns.
what the record brown trout in the state of Georgia was caught on, right?
Corn.
No,
Corn.
corn. Rapala.
A Rapala.
Corn-
Yeah,
corn
yeah,
cobs.
yeah.
Yeah,
They're-
no,
yeah,
jerk
they're
bait.
chasing-
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Jerk
chasing-
bait's not a secret. It's like
No.
it's certainly the most efficient way to get them down there at the hooch. The only
They are
problem-
apex predators. They
Yeah,
are going. The
it
bigger
just-
they get, the more they are going to kill everything that is not their lineage. Anything
When
that doesn't come from them.
When I first came back to Georgia, I went out. So I was just kind of probing the hooch, looking for big fish, and I was throwing the jerk bait. And I threw it for one day, and I never threw it again just because it was probably 50 plus fish. And the problem is those treble hooks, especially with a 3 treble bait, man, it just tears those fish up.
You kill the fish.
Like, you don't kill them,
Yeah,
but
they don't live without a jaw very well.
you definitely maim them. Like there's not any, and it's like, just to get 1 20-incher to scar up 50, 12 inchers just kind of seems
Yeah, no, I get it.
but
it.
it does help you find them. But nowadays there's alternatives like the glide baits. I mean, they're gonna come to a glide bait just as quick as a jerk bait.
Yep.
And then some of those big swim baits, and they don't have 3 trebles on them, so a little more friendly there.
Well, I mean, and also look, I mean, a lot of the bass world kind of crosses over too. Like we're throwing streamers that look like crawfish jigs.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, we're throwing those. They're crushing those.
100% of the big streamers are designed to replicate
Mm-hmm.
the stuff from bass lures for sure, whether it be jerk bait, swim bait, lipless crankbait, etc.
Yeah, the articulating streamers do that same
Yes.
action in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they're-
tell all your bass friends that we have more in common than you think, and this could be a lot of fun.
Well, that's the one thing, and that's again, and I know with these Tuesday nighters, we do the stripers and the kayaks, and a lot of those guys, they're still in the big bass lakes with everybody. But with the fly fishing, from us coming in the bass world, I don't think people realize the similarities. Really, the only difference is the equipment, but you're still doing the
How
same.
fast the water's moving.
Yeah, the same patterns. You're trying to replicate the same things, like you said, Tad. Streamer, jerk bait, crankbait fishing, those kind of things. And then a hopper and a dropper is no more than a drop shot. You got a little weight, get it down. You got something up, or Carolina rig, like you said. So there's not a lot of differences, but I think there is this mental block with guys that think, oh, fly fishing is just something different. But if they ever hooked a big trout or muskie or something of
Like
that
that,
nature,
bring out the 8-weight for bass.
yeah, I mean, seriously, it's
100%.
crazy.
Yeah,
It is
it's
crazy.
so much fun.
And
I love it.
it's a welcome change. I'm hooked on it. And now I've had a pretty decent teacher in Tad, but I frustrate the shit out of him. I do, bless his heart. He's very patient with me. But
It was all worth it to watch you climb that big old hill.
oh yeah, we went up here to Amicalola, and we started out where everybody does at the steel bridge, but we worked our way down, and to get in his eyes, and you guys that fish for him, you guys can look and say, all right, there they are. You can see them. My eyes have not got that yet. I'm working on it. But then we had to go down like a 20-foot drop, sliding mud, and my fat butt's just, there's no stopping me once gravity gets a hold of it, and the Tad's been there at the bottom. But I love it. I love it. But I'm also looking forward to getting out on Latham Reservoir over here, this electric only reservoir, in my rig when the spots are coming up all summer long. They come up throwing a streamer or something out there and just ripping spots in 80 foot of water and just let them just bulldog
Oh,
on
yeah.
that fly rod.
And as a pitch for
crazy.
as a pitch for the bass guys, it's just a different type of efficiency. You know, whether you're fishing the bass tournaments and you're, you know, trying to cover that 15 to 20 foot range, you're parallel on the bank with, we'll call it deep diving crankbait, you know, jerk bait, etc. You know, that's the efficiency there. The efficiency on the trout world, you're doing the same thing, but instead of that 15, 20 feet of water, you've got a current seam where walking pace water meets, faster, more quick water.
Yeah.
And you're running seams like that. And once you find a pattern like that works, you're replicating that as well. And you can find days like that, or like with a dry fly bite, if they're coming up in the back of glides or riffles all day.
Mhm.
You can target stuff like that and replicate that and, get the same dry fly bite all day long. So,
Yeah.
It's the same mentality, just different stuff. And, you're dealing with current here. So trout live in two dimensions, bass live in three a lot of times. So you get rid of the dimension for trout, but you add that current factor, which makes it a little bit more difficult. So they will make you better at the other one. Like I've become a better bass fisherman by fly fishing. And then, I was able to learn fly fishing better as coming from the bass world.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. Now, I want all of your guys, I want your opinions on this. Now, Tad, with you, we have gone up and you do it all the time. The blue line where you basically are getting off the beaten path, going to where it's very small. You guys have all done, close combat. That's where we talked about the bow and which when he
frustrating.
When he showed me that and just aim it at that angle. And for you guys that don't know it, if you've ever seen anybody flip a dock with a crappie jig, they've been their pole down.
They go the opposite way.
And in trout, with a fly rod, it's up, and so it's the angles. And I thought I was going to shoot him in the trees, and he just goes, just let go of it, and it would land. And it was, but if you hit it in that right spot, it's crazy quick. But would you guys like to do either that, fish a mid-sized stream, say like the Etowah or Toccoa, some of the big ones, or the Hooch? A big body of water. What's your favorite? You can start off with that. What's your favorite of all that?
I mean, I don't want to bring up pizza, but it is kind of pizza, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
you like it all?
I like it all. But I think that the Hooch, at least down in Metro Atlanta, is harder to fish in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's dependent on the release schedule for one. The bug life is really not normal because all the scouring, and I go back and forth about the Hooch. It's great because it's right there, but I think my personal preference is I like to get out in the wilderness much more than that. It's not the big water. I fish big water all across the country. Can be fantastic. It's different, but any kind of tail race that's managed like the Chattahoochee is, a tail race is when there's a dam, right? And so there's a release schedule. So when you go fish the Hooch, you can look out and see that it's really brown, but ideally what you do is you look at the release schedule either online or there's a phone number you can call so you don't get killed or you don't get trapped standing in the middle of the river.
Right.
And that to me that's just what you have to put up with if you live in the big city, because it still affords a really nice fishing opportunity. But I think for me, if I'm going to fish big water, I want it to be much more rural than that. I prefer mid and small rivers because I like to get away from it a little bit.
Yeah.
So
makes sense. Right, Gerard, what about you?
I would say the same thing. And then John and I, with the property that we eventually, bought up in North Georgia, that was the whole goal, is to be able to somehow, even though there's quasi pellet fed, to have fish that you'd find in the Hooch, but out of town where we get away
in that setting.
And we've been doing that so much because we have so many projects to deal with on our property that we just don't find the time to get up to Fires Creek or Noon Tootler to get way up into the mountains. But I really miss that. And I've been on him. Like we need to get back to the microphone to get more some of that done. So I love going out. We talked about this last time, catching a 6-inch,
the natives,
the native, it's
Absolutely.
like that to me is as much fun as if I could just go jump in the Hooch, which I can, because it's literally my backyard, and maybe spend my entire day trying to catch a striper.
Right.
So
yeah,
I like it all.
No, I get
it's
it.
all
I get
pizza.
It is pizza. Pizza's a great way. What about you?
No, you know me. My Instagram name is Blue Ridge Trout. I am in the mountains as far as I can get.
You're
Every weekend I'm sharing photos, like annoying all of you guys, everybody on this.
You're not
podcast right
annoying.
now.
It's okay. It's okay.
I am sending you guys pictures. I'm trying to find the trout that hasn't been caught by anybody else.
Mhm.
Like I'm trying to go out there and throw nothing but the most natural fly I can throw. Get out there where it's me versus a map almost.
Yeah.
And I get up there and I'm looking and I'm fighting technology, trying to find like where this road is going to take me. And I know that there's a creek there. And if I can just get, another quarter mile upstream, I know there should be some headwaters and I should be getting into trout that just are overlooked by everybody because they're kind of super deep in nature and they're probably just camping or whatever. And there's probably not too many people.
or they're
going,
lazy.
or they're
Just
lazy.
call it what it is. It's
I
like
mean,
hunters.
dude, like
they're lazy.
I need friends to go with me because it is so far up there, and my 4-wheel drive will work great, my winch will work great, but that all sucks doing by yourself. So
I get it.
I'm trying to find the furthest out trout. That I
Okay.
can find.
What about you, Tad? If you're going by yourself, and I know where you have to guide people, but if you're going by yourself,
In Georgia, I like the intimacy of the small stuff too. Like I like, just the remoteness, the get in the creek and just walk for 4 miles.
you like to walk. I know that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Lord, he does.
You go
Oh,
with
my
me.
God.
I'll give you your workout for the day.
Danny, my feet hurt.
Oh, nothing. Listen, I mean, no, we did that. I want to get to Justin Merritt real quick, and then we'll talk about that in a second, Tad, about that walking because we definitely did that. Pull up his first question right there on the bottom. Justin, appreciate you joining us tonight, man. What's up, y'all? Best trout fishing I've had in Georgia is Hemptown and the creeks that flow into it between Blue Ridge and Blairsville. That's kind of like an epicenter up there. And then his next question is this: are the Brooks the only natives that we have? You said no? He said yes.
No.
They're the only natives.
They're the only native trout species in the country.
Trout
Brown
species.
trout are
Introduced by the Germans.
Not in the countries.
Well,
Yeah, no.
salmonoids, okay, but
No, not even sound. Yeah, no.
Those tiny rainbows are not native.
out west.
Are they?
Rainbows
Not-
are native out west.
So you're saying like the sculpin that are here are not native, and the
Oh, I think
the
he's just
horny
talking about
heads
trout.
that we catch,
Just
and the
trout,
creek
just
trout.
trout.
We're just talking about
I think
trout
trout.
right now.
Yeah,
Oh,
So
oh.
brook trout are the only native
to Southern
creation.
Appalachia, or
Did I
Texas.
just get nerdier than Tad?
I don't. You
Sorry.
you might have, but he definitely knows the stuff.
So when
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
in Tula, those aren't native rainbows.
There's no native Well, I
No.
mean, they might be naturally
no native
populated
browns
now.
either.
Right. They might have been river born,
all
but they
came
are not
from-
native.
They're
Yeah,
not
they were not
Yeah.
born. Yeah,
Yeah.
So
European.
brown trout came from
Germany.
Germany.
Mhm.
Rainbows came from
Eurasia or
Eurasia.
brown trout or Eurasia.
Yeah, Czechoslovakia, like
Yeah,
further.
and then rainbows are Pacific, Northern Pacific Ocean.
That's
So
northern.
from Russia to
No, listen.
to
Now
California.
listen. So Blake goes, if it's born in the river, it's
no,
native.
it's wild.
But yes,
It's wild.
it's
That's
wild.
Yeah.
But the actual brook trout are native. Now, the brook trout we went after, very, very small.
Incredibly native.
And don't set the hook hard on them the first time. That's Tad.
No.
Don't do
We've
that.
been-
I get
We've been
trouble.
finding some big ones up there. By big,
That was
I
my
mean
next question.
10 to 12 inches, but that's big.
That's
for
big.
storage.
In
size.
Yeah.
in
Massive.
Michigan, the brook trout got fairly big.
Absolutely.
So I'm just wondering, why is there a size difference between a brook trout in Michigan and a brook trout here?
So in Georgia, like I said, the less than productive streams. So our streams typically lean on the more acidic side. So acidic, means a little less bug production. Less bug production means smaller fish. Whereas, when you get further north, they get the more, basic water pHs. So bigger bugs and colder water means, they can live longer, grow bigger.
Okay.
Yeah, they eat the bugs long enough to start eating the fish, and then they start getting real big.
Okay. So Justin said he's asking that because I've caught small native brooks in the creeks flowing into Hemptown before,
Correct.
but never in any of the main larger creeks. And so I heard a gentleman come in
Well,
here. Okay, what's that?
The browns and rainbows will outcompete them. They're not
Absolutely.
going to outcompete either of the other two species.
In a larger stream.
They'll eat them as soon as they get down there.
If they cross anywhere, like if you find a brook trout, a wild brook trout in the mix with, rainbows and browns, it's because it washed downstream, not because it was born in that section of stream.
Hey, Tad, where are the native brook trout versus the wild brook trout? Wild are introduced. Is that true?
No. I mean, all native
strain.
brook trout, all the native brook trout are wild.
Right. But is there a difference between wild and native?
Wild just means it was born in the stream.
It's highly unlikely that any of the
native means
trout.
Yeah,
native is like the original DNA of brookies that were here, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and in Georgia, we tend to there's wild trout. The only thing that you would refer to as native would be brook trout. There's just no other. There's just no other way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Back in the day, there was no.
But let me ask you this, because you were just saying, Tad, that they rainbows and browns would outcompete brook trout.
Mm-hmm.
If you had some private land, private water, and you tried to stock, could you grow trophy brook trout here? Or would that? I mean,
they'd run. So
they ran away in like 2 weeks.
They're gone.
They're gone.
They're not going to hang around.
They have to have super cold water. They're far colder than the browns and the rainbows.
It's built in for them to go as far and high as they can.
Okay, just their mentality.
We know that now.
Yep.
You do. Yeah. Oh, did y'all try?
Yeah, a couple times.
Okay, I'm just curious. I'm very curious.
Your best chance for those is delayed harvest season, Chattooga River. Tad, where else would you say that they're putting big
Rock Creek has
Smith Creek? They've in the past they put big brook trout, but your biggest chance for those are, I guess, Chattooga River, right?
I mean, what's big? I mean, there's
it's 15, 16, 18 inch.
There's probably some pellet fed ones on the Soquee.
But last year or 2 years ago, the state was stocking those large, large
brood stock.
It's sporadic.
If somebody wanted to go,
they don't do it every year.
They don't last.
No,
the water. I just don't think we're high enough altitude here. You go to North Carolina, they stock them.
Rare and
that makes sense because he was talking about. Go ahead, Ted.
Like the Mills River, they stock them.
It's not
because that's so much.
Yeah, it's not every year they do it in Georgia. 2 years ago, they stocked Smith Creek with a bunch of big ones. That were
big ones, yeah.
But it's not a surefire way to get one.
It's just not it's not going to happen.
I think what you said was pretty interesting for somebody like me who's trying to absorb everything that's being said. I'll have to go back and watch this 5 or 6 times to get it all. He was talking about water temperature and quality, and then you mentioned altitude. And as you said, as you went up into North Carolina, you get a little more altitude. There probably maybe even cleaner water. I don't know, but
you get temperature. You get temperature.
Water.
It's not so much the altitude. Altitude doesn't really have anything to do with it. They would live at lower altitudes if they didn't have to compete with the other two trout, right?
And so maybe
the rule of thumb in Georgia is 2,500 feet. It's not 2,500 feet because they can only live over 2,500 feet. It's 2,500 feet because tends to be where the big waterfalls and the natural barriers are.
Rainbows and browns
from going up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, but I still find it interesting. David, who is hanging in there with us, buddy, appreciate you. A 20-inch brown thinks that a 6-inch brook trout is candy.
Yep.
100%.
Oh, 100%.
But a rainbow trout thinks a 6-inch, a big rainbow.
Yeah, a 15-inch rainbow trout thinks,
a 20-inch brown thinks everything's candy.
Right. You'd eat my hand if it wasn't attached to my body.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you this. In Georgia, what would we consider a trophy brook?
For wild ones,
let's just say in general. Just it doesn't have to necessarily be.
With them you have to separate wild and stock because they're going to stock them at 12 to 14 inches, which is going to beat 90%.
At that point, it's another. At that point, it's another stock fish, so it'd be 24 inches, 20 to 24 inches.
So I guess
you get in that 10 to 12 inch range with the wild brookies. That's a good one. That's
huge.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what I was going to say, because I was going to ask all of you, and I think we kind of touched on it, but I want to, on our last podcast, but I want to redo it again. Would you rather catch whatever a trophy brown is to you, a trophy rainbow is, or a trophy brook in Georgia?
Trophy brook. All brown.
You're brown, you're brook. What about you, Gerard? Brown. You're thinking about it here, John.
I am. I mean, the browns are the most beautiful fish ever
pizza.
invented.
I want to catch them all.
It's totally pizza.
Yeah.
But the Brook would be such a rare sighting for me because I'm not a good fisherman apparently.
And
You're at the base of a waterfall, 2 miles from the nearest human, and you're holding a 14-inch brook trout in your hand in Georgia, knowing that.
Yeah, but if I had a 20-inch brown trout in that same pool,
wild brown too.
Wild brown. Yeah. Like if I caught a 20+ inch any fish on the Nutula, but particularly a brown on the Nutula, 20-inch brown.
I would say there's a lot more wild brookies over 10, 12 inches than there are 20+ inch browns.
Yes,
true in Georgia.
Okay,
it's just rare.
So you remembering, guys, again. So all of these gentlemen have been involved with our season 2 of the Real American Road Trip that's fixing to come out. We were at Oktoberfest, and that's where we filmed several episodes, one of which was at your place, which thank you guys very much. That was an experience. And one of them was with Tad, and we went up as far up, and Tad, you remember this, we went as far up basically as the hooch as you could go. Pretty much. Would you say that's pretty accurate?
Yeah. We weren't far away from that.
Now, do you remember the last pool that we were fishing? Nice. What came out from under that rock that just kind of blew your mind? That one, the size. Remember the brown? We thought it was a big brown. We were fishing,
well, some
there.
browns were pushing up,
you said it was not supposed to be there.
Yes,
but
I still tell people that story when we were working up there. I was like, we're looking for one rainbow trout to finish out your slam, and we kept catching these 14 to 17-inch browns in tiny water on dry flies.
It was
and
crazy.
I was like, this can be a whole TV show in itself, but this is not what I wanted today.
Right, it wasn't.
It's just rainbows.
Yeah, but I remember it was our last spot. You saw some. We made a cast, and all of a sudden, this shadow comes flying out from under a rock where it shouldn't have been, and it blew your mind that a fish that size was up there because they weren't supposed to be there.
It had jumped several smaller waterfalls.
It was crazy. We didn't catch it. We couldn't. He tried it. I tried again. We never saw it. But just seeing as we're going up, talking about piggybacking off of you, like getting way off.
Yeah.
And I'm following Tad, and we're doing this, and we'll hit a spot, and we're catching hit a spot. We get this last one though. And that right there was part of these waterfalls and us having to climb up rocks just to get there. Thinking that a brown or any trout for that matter can actually get up and get to this next spot and get up to get to this spot. Blew my mind. I don't think
6 miles
people
a day.
it.
6 miles a day is what
a brown can go 6 miles a day.
Trout can go about 6 miles a day upstream.
But I don't think them wild ones the little bitty ones we were after, those are pretty much, that's their home body, right, Tad, where we were at? I mean, they stay, they don't migrate as much.
That's where they start. It's like the trout thing. They start way upstream and then they go downstream and then they migrate back upstream.
And it depends on what type of water they are. Like a brown trout on big water, he's going to move a lot more than brown trout on a little water. Not that the brown trout on a little water won't move, but the ones on big water can cover some ground.
Okay. All right. Let's talk public access right now for somebody that's watching this thinking, or watching in the future. I want to go get a fly rod. I want to, go somewhere public. Where is the best possibility for them to catch a trout of any?
So for any of the beginners, the stock creeks are the way to go. That's where you want to, really focus your time on. The biggest thing you can do for yourself is go after those fish, learn how to get a good drift, learn how to set the hook.
Yes, we worked on that.
Your state DNR, your state wildlife management should post a list weekly of the areas and creeks they stock.
And
yes, they do.
And there's some stuff on the Georgia Wild Trout website where you can, just depending on what city you're going to be around, whether it be Helen, Blue Ridge, Dahlonega, LJ, where you can look at what creeks those are. And we kind of break down what you can expect there, whether it be stock trout, during certain times of the year, wild trout year round, etc.
You can catch all three on the Toccoa in Blue Ridge from the dam to Horseshoe Bend. Talking about all three species. Farmer says that.
Yes, you can.
Toccoa's I'd go anywhere else. I never would recommend Koa for beginners. One, I mean,
Oh, not for a beginner. Okay, yeah.
yeah. If you,
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
for a
why
beginner?
not?
Why not for a
For a
beginner?
beginner.
Tell us
For a
about
beginner,
that.
Tad, why would you not try that? In your opinion, why would you not fish that?
It's bigger water. It gets beat to death. You're fishing shoulder to shoulder with.
That's why I
everybody
wouldn't do
else.
it.
Like you can,
Too many people.
you know, even a popular place like Rock and Cooper's Creek are just down the road, and you can at least space out a little bit better out there and have a chance of finding some trout that have gotten away. If you're there on like a Sunday afternoon after the Friday afternoon, Saturday, whole day Saturday onslaught out there,
Right.
you can find some fish that get away.
It's crazy. Every place has got way more crowded, and it's just I guess a tip of the cap to how popular fishing I guess has
It
become.
is. Yeah.
Because it's not necessarily
Post-COVID,
more
it's that-
fly fishing
Oh,
or
yeah.
spin fishing or whatever, but it's just
People want
it's
the
insane.
outdoors.
It's
Yeah.
insane.
Okay. All right. So we mentioned kind of public, and you said basically, just where they normally stock. Taking your piece of property out of the equation, private water in North Georgia, what would be your favorite place or a place that you would like to go or that you would send somebody?
That's not ours.
That's not yours. Take yours out of the equation.
I mean,
Everybody knows about Nintula, the Soqueen.
yeah, but I mean, you can fish the public access of the Nintula, and it's fantastic. I mean, I know some people are like, "Oh, don't ever talk about the Nintula. Our holes are going to get taken. Get out of here."
Yes.
Everybody from Florida has already done that.
Yeah,
Dad, we were
Like,
just
I don't want to hear
talking
that.
about
But
Dad.
I mean, I think that
Too late.
private water fishing, honestly, is just a different thing. Really,
Yeah.
I mean, so they're all pretty good.
Uh-huh.
I think that there's a lot of places to fish privately on the Soquee, and it's big enough water, and there's a lot of big fish, and kind of throughout all the people who own property there. Personally, that's the only kind of private water fishing I'd ever want to do is it was trophy size fish, because North Georgia is littered with a zillion other great places
There's
to
so many
fish.
places.
Yeah.
Just to catch fish and get out and learn how to fly fish. I just like
And not have to pay for it.
And not
like
to pay
it's some
for it.
sort of
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
listen, hook up with a guide and come fish our place. You'll love it. Sure. But that it's a different mindset of fishing, right? For me anyway. And I wouldn't,
I agree with that.
it wasn't like I spent 30 years fishing private water because I wanted my own. That is
Right.
not that at all. I love
Right.
it's pizza to me, right? So
Yeah.
the reason I wanted private water of my own is because I wanted a place to go fish where I could kind of control it a little bit, not because I needed to catch giant trophies. I mean,
Right.
that's great, but at the end of the day, when you leave our place and you've caught a lot of big fish, it's not like normal fishing in the rest of Georgia.
Yes.
And so you have to compartmentalize.
mind, yeah.
Well, it's different. Just like if you're going to fish for bass, it's different mindset than fishing for trout or fishing for muskie. Like if you're going to fish for muskie, nobody wants to catch a 6-inch. I've fished all over Canada. Nobody wants to catch an 18-inch muskie. Nobody really wants to catch a 24-inch muskie. Nobody wants a 10-pound muskie. You want a big tank. You want to see something that ate a bird recently.
Yes. Yeah.
Or multiple ducks in one sitting, right? I mean, it's a different mindset. So if you go to fish private water, generally speaking, you expect that you're going to get on some big fish,
Okay.
right? So
Makes sense.
for me, some people don't find it as sporting because they think it's fish in a barrel, and that's not true either. But there is an element of the fish that you shoot in the barrel are going to be bigger.
Yeah.
You're not going to catch a 6-inch fish on our property, probably.
That makes
right?
sense.
So
Yeah.
for me, you got to separate that a little bit. And I think it's pizza.
You just like it
I
all.
just like fishing, man.
I like that.
But-
What
Yeah.
about you, Tad?
It takes time.
You guide all over the place. I mean,
Yeah. I would have liked to have seen NCF like 10 years ago when it was a little less pressured and they might have still come to the surface a good bit. Just
It was fun. It was phenomenal.
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, in terms of like
We did
bug life in Nintula, I don't think there's any better in Georgia that I've seen that has more bugs than Nintula.
Then in Tula. Okay.
But it's not what it was, which I mean is understandable because of the popularity. But yeah, now I don't.
It's still pretty great, though.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, none of the private stuff's going to be bad, right?
Or
But-
private.
No, we're
private.
talking about
We're just
NCF,
talking about
Like,
private.
I-
Yeah.
I-
not the
what
public
I would be
access.
looking for is like I want to get them on a dry fly, and and I love the hatches, and like I don't care whether they're 20 inches or 12 inches. If I can pick apart a hatch, that's my favorite thing about fly fishing. Period.
Yeah.
Just
That's the next level.
puzzle.
So yeah, like doing the science in the head and everything.
Oh yeah. I love getting my butt whooped for 30 minutes before I figure out what they're finally eating. Then I get 5 minutes of success before it's all over.
Okay, absolutely. Well, then I'll change that question because I think I understand. I think your answer was good. It's a different mindset, private to public, and all that. So, what is the hardest part about fly fishing in Georgia to you?
You kind of hit the nail on the head when you talked about out west. A lot of the rivers or creeks are in the middle of what amounts to steppe or savanna. They're grasslands. There's not a lot of junk around the side. So, over the many years, not so hard anymore because, I've broken off so many in the rhododendrons and the Mount Laurel. You finally learn how not to do that. But that is definitely the hard part. But of recent vintage, the hard part of North Georgia is it's overrun. And I hate to say that it's almost cross purposes what we're doing right now.
Right.
But the last bunch of years, it's been, the public access stuff has really just been on a weekend. It's almost like don't bother.
Because just the crowd.
It's so crowds.
I would say it's also not managed well. Just from the top. It's Georgia's trout management is very poor compared to a lot of other states around.
And why is that? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Why is that? That's rhetorical. Anybody answer?
Yeah. They're just still in the Stone Age when it comes to management. They manage it as a welfare fishery, a food stamp fishery, rather than manage for maybe some trout, some trophy waters, some protected waters. Like you look at just right across the border at North Carolina, they've got more delayed harvests. They have more protected wild trout fisheries. They so they divvied up well. Georgia is 95% put and take, 5%.
So is that an enforcement issue? Like they're just not.
No, you can't blame enforcement. It's too big of an area for them to enforce the whole thing. It's just management strategies. Like they don't have any. I don't know if it's laziness or ignorance, but they don't even try. To
compared to other states.
The delayed harvest was an attempt at it, but they built these delayed harvests and they put them on, crap water, which is their design, but there's plenty of really good water that could have great fish in it, but don't because there's, they don't try to protect, that.
So how would you change that if you could? What's the one thing about the enforcement or the management of trout in Georgia that you would change?
So for example, like the Toccoa River DH, it is accessible to the public who want to wade till December. Right. And then when the water goes up in the winter, it just becomes too dangerous, especially for beginners to wade. So it's technically useless to the public. So it's kind of gone. Amicalola also gets washed out for, a good bit of time after the rains come through. So it's, only accessible, maybe 2/3 at most of the delayed harvest season. Whereas like if you just go upstream, a little bit longer and take some of these fisheries that are just stock streams, throughout the year, at least the spring, summer periods, and turn those into the delayed harvest, like the gorge and the hooch, like up the WMA on the hooch. No one goes up there and fishes all that stuff, but it's not protected. So it gets chewed up.
So you're saying you would put more delayed harvests in different locations.
It doesn't, whether it's delayed harvest or you're just making more Noontulas. Right. So Noontula Creek is a massive success. Like that it's a stream they protected. It's wildly productive, has a great wild trout fishery, but it's one of the only ones in the state. And and I guess they don't even go out there to see that literally every parking spot's filled up every week from April through, October out there now.
People are living there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a major success story that they haven't really replicated.
That's the other point.
Absolutely do it with the again upstream on the hooch. Very productive water, could definitely support a great wild trout population, but it's going to the wayside. Like if they just didn't stock the hooch, it would be more productive fishery in terms of the number of trout in it. And all the trout they're stocking in the hooch, they could just stock, whether it be downtown Helen, put them in Smith Creek, put them in any of the other ones, Soap Creek, right on the other side of the ridge, any number of the other, fishery or, streams in the area.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big problems is they just don't have enough people to enforce.
Well, you can't expect them
They were to start
they're
creating
not-
more and more protected areas. They don't have the people to just magically appear to protect those protected areas.
Look at Duke's Creek. Duke's Creek was fine for a little bit. They can't sit out there and protect it all summer when nobody's fishing it, right? So it's going to get poached to death. The number of big fish in there is kind of a joke compared.
I had a guy tell me, "Oh, we don't stock Duke's Creek," and I was like, I know people who have physically stocked this creek, so why are you telling me that?
They'll stock it during the season, but it's just like regular stockers.
I guess that's their attempt at like stopping people from poaching, thinking that like I was going to come poach it later, like if I knew their stocking regime or whatever. But yeah, I was like,
okay, but Ted, I might be mistaken, but I was trying to listen to your answer about the Chattahoochee, and you said if they stocked it less, the fishing would be better.
Yes.
What did you mean by
there would be more trout.
That?
They wouldn't be bigger trout. Stockers are still going to be bigger than the wild trout, but the upper part of the hooch there in the WMA could support an excellent population of wild fish. And it used to. Like there between, the old ranger station and the rafting place, used to be tons of wild trout. And they've just been, I'm assuming they've swallowed corn and just gotten a gut hooked, or I don't know, maybe some of the brown trout they stocked ate some of the wild ones, or
But do you think
something happened along the way where there is a tiny population of wild fish there now?
Do you think
it used to be better?
Do you think stocking less is going to create less poachers?
No, it just depletes
or
the
pressure.
Not pressure, the bycatch, right? Like if these wild fish 6 inchers are choking on corn and power bait, they're not going to live to the next year to keep reproducing.
Okay, so you're saying stock less as a means to let the wild fish
and let the wild trout
have a chance.
Okay. Yes, yeah. You get rid of those. You're not going to get the guys throwing that stuff around. And it doesn't matter anyway. They're keeping all the stockers anyway. So what's it matter if they're fishing the Chattahoochee on the WMA versus Smith Creek, for example?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
That is interesting.
It is. Well, I haven't put a lot of thought into all this. Now I've got a lot to think about. What is the one thing, like if you could change anything about fly fishing in Georgia, trout fishing in Georgia, and I'll let you start, Nathan. If you could change one thing about it for the positive to make it a better fishery, what would you do?
Oh man, to make it a better fishery, I think like we should look at the way North Carolina does it and create more
diversity,
more delayed harvest streams, and more hype around the delayed harvest time and the festival that really promotes taking care of the fisheries that we have currently. And they do an amazing job. You look at Asheville, their delayed harvest festival. It's really cool. And there's and there's a ton of conservation efforts around that, and it gives people kind of this jump off point for conservation efforts. And I think doing that would really help our fisheries a lot, and really start to show that we're going to put a lot of fish in here, and we're going to build these environments for the sport fishery, and really create a buzz around that, which is just going to bring more people in that are doing sport fishing and doing fishing the right way, and hopefully try and push these people that are kind of like the bad eggs in the dozen, screwing it up for everybody else. And hopefully doing it the right way with more people pushes the bad people out. I guess kind of.
Yeah. That twofold answer is down in town, because I'm on the board of the Chattahoochee River Keeper.
Right.
The release schedule, the way they just blow that river out, at least the hooch, It's as John.
They've already done stuff for that. It's been encouraging to see. They changed the release.
Well, they're doing some, but we have to do more. But really, the second phase of the answer is education. Along the lines of what Nate was saying, a lot of business owners and landowners along the hooch down in town, the siltation, what they store along it, they just blow through the DNR regulations, and DNR is drinking from a fire hose. It can't enforce.
There's not enough people to
enforce it. And, the legislature is just not going to make that a priority.
Well, they shouldn't have to do more. It should be more personal responsibility. More DNR agents isn't going to solve the problem either.
No, I mean,
which is essentially what CRK does. A lot of our budget is suing people.
Right.
We have to go sue them for enforcement.
Right.
So follow their own laws. Follow the laws of the state. So I think, but really the other part of what I was getting at is education of the individual, that if you go corn chucking and take home fish in a bucket, there's a lot bigger investment in those fish than people realize. Just go to the Publix and buy a $9 fish fillet. I mean,
on the hooch, just a sustainable fishery. Like, the DNR is not stocking any browns. Why not put a protection on them? Like, why not just say, hey, browns are catch and release? Like that, to me, that's a no brainer. Like, they're sustaining their own population. Don't fight against them when they're trying to be there. And don't put up that, they're an exotic species, like blah, blah, blah. Like, it's kind of a cop out answer for them.
It is. So anyway, so the answer is education.
Yeah.
So how do we bridge the gap between those that are more interested in conservation and those that are, I want to go catch my limit, take it home and eat it, which is legal. It's legal, but how can you eat? Because like in hunting, you can't bridge for some reason. Like in hunting, guys that want to trophy manage bucks compared to guys that just want to kill to eat, whatever.
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, there's always going to be that gap. You're not going to do it, but can is it possible?
Well,
no.
Is it just an impossible barrier?
It's a culture change that has to happen, and it's
this
not going
is
to happen without new rules, right? Like
it's not going to happen in our lifetime.
If you take the big fish, they are no longer there. It's simple math. But what fact is, somebody who needs to eat or wants to eat a trout, or
with their tax dollars,
or more importantly, the kids. The kids always want to take one.
Yes.
It's like, where do you stop it? And it's
taking fish isn't a problem, but Georgia's not the biggest trout producer naturally, by a long shot.
Exactly.
But we still have the highest limits in the U.S. So like, it doesn't really make sense. Yeah, 8. I don't.
Our creel limit is high.
I don't know any state with 8. For example, Colorado's is 4, and they pump out trout, right? So
I did not know.
And what's our limit?
Creel limit's 8.
8.
I don't take trout, so I wouldn't know.
Right.
You don't like trout anyway to eat.
No, we had a story where once we got trapped in the Idaho backcountry by the fires. I'm a pilot. We flew in. I couldn't fly back out.
We had to eat.
We had 4 boxes of wine, but we ate trout for 4 days.
So you had enough of it.
I was gagging on it by the end.
He didn't like trout anyway.
No, he was just stripping the skin off like a bear and eating it. It's like, you just need the skin.
I just need the fatty
I just need to eat. No, but I think that we have to look at this as a long haul. And in our lifetimes, it's not probably going to end up where we want it to be as far as trout management or fishing management in general. So once you set your that doesn't mean you can't have high expectations. It just means that it's a cultural thing that we're trying to change the needle on the culture here. We're trying to teach people that all fishing, because it's not just trout, but since Trout Tuesdays, let's talk about trout. Yeah. Trout require they don't reproduce naturally nearly very well here like they do in other parts of the country because of the water, because of the acidity. I mean, all that red clay is, you just look at it as an acid wash, right? So it's not it's a sensitive fish to have here. Right. They really don't do well even right here, right? We have to feed them. So if you consider them to be somewhat of an exotic species, they require an exotic approach in a lot of ways, right? So to teach people that is hard.
Yeah.
And you can look at it holistically from a conservationist perspective, or you can look at it from, we got to train the people who are just taking their 8 creel limit. You got to nip at the edges in a lot of ways, but at the end of the day, you have to teach people, or people have to change their whole approach to it. And that's going to take a lot of time. It just is.
Yeah.
So we can try to nip at the edges and do some sensible things like change the creel limit or get the Chattahoochee to try to change our energy contract that we have, which Chattahoochee, when it runs through Atlanta, is an energy contract. That's why we have to release water.
Right.
Would we like it to release water more frequently, but less amounts? Of course, but Georgia gets a lot of rain. So there are a lot of complicated issues that are tied into energy, for example, with Chattahoochee. Well, but it's that case everywhere. So if you look at it as I'm in this for the long haul, it becomes a lot easier to accept.
Okay.
And if you look at, neighboring states like, the Chattahoochee, you can't really compare to the rest of North Georgia, but you could look at other success stories like the White River, the Tuck.
Great success story. Incredible.
Yes. Like, and look at the management strategies they've used, and they're doing very well. Like there's the, and they have a slot limit on some stuff on the White River. Then they have, you can take 4 rainbow trout, 1 brown trout, I think, and then, a couple Brook, cutthroat, whatever else they're stocking in there. But they have more targeted management strategies. Georgia's just covered with one blanket. Hey, take 8 of whatever you want, throw it out there. We'll be fine.
Okay.
The Chattahoochee was a blue ribbon fishery before they built the dam.
Mm-hmm.
It was an incredible fishery.
Mm-hmm.
And they built the dam, and there's again
dams.
Yeah. I mean, once that happened, it fundamentally changed the fishery. So you're not going to remove those dams. There's power requirements for a large growing city. There's water requirements, right? So how are you going to change things at the edges and target them like Tad's talking about here, and then change culture along with that, right? So it's doable. I think you have to set your expectations accordingly.
I think it's definitely going to take a culture shift. And like, kind of how I see it is like, again, I'm not against keeping fish by any means, but like, man, when you show up there on Sunday and you see like a dad with 2 young kids fishing in an empty hole, that there was 200 fish in the day before and there's none left just because, somebody wants to go home with 8 fish instead of the 4 they need for their meal. It kind of seems, it's like, oh man, like that kid you would have made that kid's day by,
they're fish in a freezer.
I have a theory that it's like, if you really need trout that bad, I would love to see the Georgia DNR implement a program where it's show up with your stringer and your fishing license with your trout stamp to the truck. We'll be here at whatever creek for the next 45 minutes, and here's our route. Yeah. Come show up. We'll give you the trout.
Yeah. Well,
that's why I said Publix.
It's crazy that a $20 trout license, supplies, and it's the small, it's the 1%, but the $20 trout
you can
license,
find us every day. 8 trout a day would fill your freezer, and you would literally survive on that if you had to.
I get you.
Holy crap!
But those people don't have a trout stamp half the time. No, they don't pay for the license.
So that's what I said. Like that would clean up. I think that would clean up a lot of problems and a lot of, like the
free trout
crap we see on the side of the banks.
just set up markets. Yeah. We don't have all the litter down the river.
Just show us
like
your
trout protein powder.
Yeah, you don't got to show up with cans of corn to get 8 trout. Like show up, grab your trout. See you tomorrow if you really need it. And if you wanted, you could probably fill a freezer doing that all summer long.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. If you're
there's no excuse to be hungry.
I get you. Farmer wants to know, we're getting close to the end, guys. So appreciate you guys hanging with us. We'll pull up David Weaver's first. I want to read that about New York. In New York, they let you keep 3 that were 9-inch to 12-inch and 2 over 12 to 15-inch. Almost kind of like a slot limit a little bit. And everything else goes back.
Yep.
Yeah, but in New York, if your oil pan's leaking, you can't drive it to the grocery store. Here, you could be pumping sulfuric oxide out of the back of your car, and they let you drive wherever.
So you know what? In New York, if you're doing things they don't like, the guides will shoot at you. I mean, they are absolutely militant up there. That's
if that's what it takes.
Yeah.
If anyone's from New York, this will blow your mind. I do not have to go to do emissions for my vehicle for where I live. They just say, you have a birthday, you have an address, Have fun.
Yeah.
See ya.
That's how it is.
Well,
$25. See ya.
It's a county regulation.
Yeah,
What was
it's
you saying?
County driven.
Here.
Yeah, what was you
People
saying, Tad?
from New York's mind just blow.
There's a few states like that. Texas is like
Yeah.
that. You just
Yeah.
you pay your road tax, and then
Hey,
That's it.
can we talk gear for just 1 second?
You talk whatever you want.
All right. Because Tad, I want your opinion. I have an opinion, but I want your opinion on this. At what level for general trout fishing do you feel the need that the reel becomes a key aspect of fishing for trout?
Saltwater.
Salt water, let's call that advanced. But I'm talking about in North Georgia trout fishing. How important is the reel?
if you're on private water, it's important. Everywhere else, it's not
Right.
important. Not
Everywhere else.
Yeah.
I want to repeat that.
Amazon.
And if you're fishing private water with a guide, have him bring a nice reel for you.
Fish with his reel.
If you're on the fence about what we're
Yeah.
talking about on Tuesdays for trout fishing, and you know you're a bass guy and you're feeling like you're going to cheat really seriously, if you come over to this shop here and look at a reel, I'm telling you right now, reels. This is my opinion. Reels they're like super expensive golf clubs. They're like they're like a Louis Vuitton purse to a woman or to a person who buys purses.
Carry your money to the club.
I think reels are the most overpriced thing in a trout person's repertoire.
But I love them.
I'm
They
crazy in love with a $1,200.
They sound good. Click, click,
Like, am I right, Dad? I mean, like, how often
no,
do
no,
you
no,
really
no,
even
no,
put it
no,
on the
no.
drag in North Georgia, unless you're fishing a trophy water? You're catching a 14-inch fish in Nututla or like in a
the only other
nice
place you need a drag is maybe if you're streamer fishing the hooch, or maybe even the Toccoa.
Yeah.
But that'd be the only one that's going to pull drag on you.
But even then, I just want beginners to know that when they say that trout fishermen are snobby or just rich,
Walmart, Bass Pro Shops.
your
North
reel should be.
Georgia,
I think the
here.
reel is the most overrated piece of equipment in
have
the world.
everything
for
you
most
need.
for the majority of trout fishermen, and if you're fishing
Ignore it.
with a guide, your guide will have a really good reel to change your mind,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, and he'll be like, yeah, this is a great reel, and then you work with it, and you're like, oh, this is a nice reel.
But of course, the guy didn't really pay for it because he gets the guide discount.
That's
Wow.
true. That's true. I get that.
I just want that to be known.
Danny, do not short.
I want to be
sell it.
validated by my opinion.
I know, but
That's it.
I get what you're saying. Is a lot of guys go into it with the mindset that we've got to have the most expensive of everything to do it, and you don't. You can start off with a very basic set, and in most places, it's just fine.
Good waders. Good waders matter.
Yeah.
Fly fishing has become cheaper than bass fishing in the past.
Whoa, that is a hot take.
Wowie.
That needs to be an entire Thursday because I want to see him field those questions.
It's
Pat, I'll go to war with you,
not that
bro.
much. It's not that much a hot take anymore.
You are
Yeah,
saying that bass
Pat, I'll
fishermen
go
are the
to-
new snobs.
I will say this.
I'm not going to say snobs. It's just more expensive.
No, he is-
If I
true,
got to
Greg.
gear up 10 bait casters versus 1 or 2 fly rods, bass fishing is more expensive.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 'cause-
Well, it's hard to shore cast for bass too, right? Don't you have to get into the water?
And with a bunch of $10 lures now, yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you can't. The
The
cheap
lures are all
crankbaits,
$10.
Yeah,
Not even throwing the boat.
Going way up.
not even counting the boat and the sonar and
This
all
is why
that.
people are chucking corn because
Yeah.
they can't afford to bass
Well,
fish.
It sounds like a hot take, and I get why on the surface it would be, but the reality of it is I guarantee you most. I mean, how many rods do you typically use in a year fly fishing? In
Oh,
North Georgia?
all of them.
Are you asking me or my
I mean,
better half?
How many would you normally
No,
take?
I own 3.
Three.
I own 3.
All right,
I mean 3.
3 is about what you
Yeah,
use.
but
I own
usually
3.
1.
Okay, something similar. I mean, you might own 50.
I
but
have my go-to.
you have your go-to. So
Yeah.
I would say
And then I have the
average-
big trout spay, which
Yeah.
I always use.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's those two.
I would say the average bass angler that fishes big water, got a bass boat on it, probably carries about 10 to 20 rods in his rod locker, and every one of them have a specific purpose, and they're all got, they all want to get the new reels. Not everybody, but that's just that's what it's becoming.
It's like golf clubs, like
It
you
is,
said.
exactly like you said.
Wow.
Bass fishing in general has got, and the price of the lures is all crazy high now. And whereas I have guys come in and say, that topwater bait's $50, but man, it's hot. I'm like, you could buy
What?
4. Oh yeah, you could buy 4 old
A
Xeris.
single lure is $50.
Oh, I got them on my wall over here that are $60, $70, man. Seriously.
See, I think you bass guys have it all wrong.
Predatory pricing.
It's the bass
You
snob.
guys got to have. I will watch that
Please.
Thursday show. That's all about the
Look,
inflation.
see,
Please.
They're all made in
They call me
China
out like
anyway.
But
Yeah.
what it is,
Wow.
but what
I
it
didn't
is,
know
it's,
that.
it's marketing. It's marketing, not. But guys think back in the old day, you used to have 2 or 3 rods, and that would do everything. But now everything is specific. You look at every rod manufacturer out there in the bass world that said their product line is
It's got the
15
pleasure.
rods.
It's got the pleasure
All
tip.
15 rods are for a specific purpose. And Tad
Man.
knows what I'm talking about. And then you get into the floor rod.
Most of
You
my
get into
flies
the-
are $2.
I think this is
Crazy.
where the bass fishermen and the fly fishermen butt heads. It's like, dude, we could catch just as many bass as you on a piece of yarn. And like, what are y'all doing?
Yeah.
Why are you spending 50
20 rods.
on a
I can't
thing
get over this.
That looks like a crappie running down the creek bank when I'm gonna throw a piece of yarn 18 inches under a bobber and I'm gonna cook bass on this down tree in the river. Like that's nuts.
I don't know if it's that easy, but
Something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Tad, are you backing this up? I mean, your hot take is taking over the
look,
show.
look at Farmer. Yeah, I own like 30 to 40 rods. from
Oh
him.
my God! I can't afford to be a bass fisherman.
I won't throw a fly rod at a bass. It drives me nuts how inefficient it is.
What?
Oh, I would.
Dude, I have friends who are like, do
Dude,
not come fishing with us and bring that fly rod.
I'll fish.
It's
circles around
ridiculous.
them, you and all of them on the bass rod. It's not fair. Like I fished for all of like 2 hours on the Buffalo River for smallmouth.
Dude, a
with the fly
woolly
rod,
booger
and I
about
switched to spin
18
rod.
inches under a bobber
If
on
you're
a
fishing
down
farm-
tree
maybe if you're fishing a farm
nails
pond,
them.
farm pond, maybe a pressured farm pond.
He won't do that on
you're not
Lanier.
out.
I did that on Lanier.
He
Oh
won't-
no, I did it on Hollis.
You would,
I
you would
lied.
get
I
spanked
lied.
on Lanier. with
Yeah,
that fly
right.
rod.
You go enter some of these bass tournaments out here and watch them laugh
Yeah.
at you. when
Yeah,
you
they're not using fly rods.
with
Yeah.
your 5
Wow.
pounders at the weigh-in.
20 fly
Yeah.
rods just to be, or 20 bat. I'm,
Yeah, seriously.
Okay.
No, seriously.
I'm
I
aghast.
know nothing.
I have.
You and I in the boat. So Blake and I fished. You had 6, and I had 6 or 7 in the boat. We only used 2 all day, but we had them. You know, we only used.
Yeah.
Chuck
We got to
Brown-
have more ammo than,
6 or 7 in the boat.
than targets.
Oh, listen. I mean, well, yeah. I mean, but I knew we were only going to throw 2 or 3 all day. But you got them.
No, we're gonna do this one day. We're gonna do a bass rod versus a fly rod. 6 or 7. That number does not scare
As
me.
much
one
as
bit.
you, as
Tad,
much as you love your fly
Tad has
rod,
blown my mind,
I know,
not only
Tad.
with his trout knowledge, but with the fact
I
that it's
will-
more
listen,
expensive to be a
I-
bass
I'll
fisherman.
get you over at Hollis.
No, I believe
I
Tad
will-
on that.
I will
Wow.
spank your
Okay.
ass with the bass rod.
I got to hang with
I
more bass
will-
people.
I'll kick your bat. No, what?
Yeah,
I will. Have,
he's stepping it
I
back
will
now.
have
Thad.
less than $200 in equipment. Yeah, all day, dude.
All right.
I'll outfish you.
You're getting your hair cut on that one too.
I want to witness. I want to witness this.
I can cover more ground with a fly rod
Oh,
than
God.
you can with a spin rod.
Tad, he's doubling down.
How
He's
many-
doubling down.
how many
There's
of these
absolutely
do
no
you
way.
Cover that ground.
He's-
All right, and so
You
for my
cannot.
next gear question,
Yeah.
But
I'm
if you
kidding.
were to go in the middle of the lake, no, you killed me. Like there's nothing I can
wait a
do.
second.
It wouldn't matter where you are in the
We're
lake.
fishing the edge.
Okay, well,
Kill it.
since we're on this topic, Tad, since you apparently have some hot takes on things I don't know anything about, what other gear for fly fishing do you think is overrated in price, or that you can get by with something?
I
Waders?
think
No, I
these
swear by
waders,
waders.
save your
the
life.
new Novice waders have knee pads. They're freaking phenomenal.
In Georgia, waders because you just don't need them. Or for
Yeah, most of the time you don't need them. You can't go out there without them.
yeah.
Well, at least
Man,
I do think the good.
Well, what else? So waders you
important.
think tend to be a little bit overpriced for the fly fisherman?
What's that?
What other piece of gear do you think is possibly overpriced for fly fishermen?
Whatever they're holding their flies in, whether it be a vest, like whatever they're using, for a pack, right?
Yeah,
Those are always,
yeah, that's Louis Vuitton territory right
They're
there.
a bag of air.
Too many sling packs, too many bags.
Yeah, if you're a beginner, man, a fanny pack will do more for you than any sling pack will.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
This is funny.
I'm honest.
Yeah, I can't do it.
This
I've
is
tried.
funny. I still like how he dodged right to the. If you take me away from the bank, oh, it's a different story. You just said you could outfish.
It wouldn't
You
even
can't
matter.
crank the
I
bank.
can't drop a 30-foot dropper on a fly rod. That's not going to happen.
Think about how much time you spend back casting a fly rod versus how many times I can cast a bait caster in 2 minutes.
No,
Oh,
if
and
you're,
shoot
if you're
that.
good enough,
Not
it's
close.
out and back in.
I'm not good enough.
And
you
then
need a
let
lot
it
of
drop out, back in.
But I will
No,
tell you this.
Nate, I think you're a fallen angel here, right,
I will-
bud?
I will
Yes,
say
that's
this.
right.
No. I'll die on this hill.
There's
I don't
no
care.
way.
I don't
Wow.
care.
I think you've
There's
already
no
passed
way.
away. I think
He's
you've already
gonna
passed away. He's
I will
already,
cover more
he's already
water.
passed
The
away.
whole time you're sitting there doing this,
Reeling in the fish, you meant?
Anyway,
I'm out in.
I think-
out
Yeah,
in.
but I'm reeling in the fish.
so
And I love
I
fly
don't
fishing.
know.
But you
I
that's
don't
that's.
know.
I will say on a river, you might get me, but you get out on a lake with a guy that knows what he's doing.
You're not even doing it on a river.
Yeah, it's
No, I don't need to do it on a river.
it's too efficient. That's the thing. And I think that's what makes
Yeah,
fly
it's way
fishing
too much.
different. I think that's what makes fly fishing fun.
That's
Sounds like a great
inexpensive,
challenge.
apparently.
Well, bass fishing.
Don't tell anyone else in my house that.
Yeah, bass fishing is expensive, and like what he said, like just the Ford sonar.
Sonar for sure.
Oh,
Yeah, they're going to
it's
get you on
killing
that.
It's killing you, and even batteries. You guys are so much that you got to have.
Yeah, but the
Just
sonar is pretty cool.
It is
So,
amazing.
Danny,
Cool.
Fish
Farmer
finders
asked,
are the best.
Farmer asked a good question a little ways back about it was about Fighting Town Creek or Noontuba Creek.
Oh yeah,
that
could
Fighting
that be
Town
good?
and
Could you
Cooper-
do another
and
Noontuba?
Coopers, yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Right there at the very top.
Oh, it was Cooper's Creek, maybe.
Coopers.
It was
No, he
either-
said Fighting Town and Coopers.
Yeah, could they?
Yeah.
Could they be what you got? You know, in looking for a trophy stream, do they have what it takes?
So Cooper's could. Fighting Town there's too much private land on it. The public access on Fighting Town's pretty
Yeah,
limited. So it
privately
wouldn't be
owned.
anything. And then
That's great.
trophy stream. I don't agree with putting any trophy streams on Georgia public water. As you've seen from the two that exist now, one's a major failure and one is circling the toilet bowl.
Right.
So I think they're a lost cause. If
I
you want a
gotcha.
trophy stream, the hooch, the tailwater on the hooch is going to be your closest bet, and that just needs better regulation on it for it to be a
I don't-
trophy stream.
Yeah, parts of Cooper's are big enough to hold trophy, but like
Oh, could they do it? Yes, but they're going to be poached.
Yeah.
To death. It's not.
Yeah,
It's not a
exactly.
matter.
Like, I don't-
But in practicality, there's no hope for there ever being a trout stream in Georgia.
I mean,
It will
honestly,
never-
anywhere in Georgia you're gonna go could be poached to death. Like it's not
Mm.
like
Oh,
this
yeah.
day and
But
age,
but when you
they're
label
all that. Yeah.
when you label it trophy, you put a huge target on it, and it's like I said,
Yeah.
it's not going to
Anywhere in the country,
anywhere,
Really?
yeah. If
I mean,
you started that anywhere,
you go to any
People
blue
will
ribbon
find
stream,
it-
it gets pressure.
people want to know. People are curious, and they're gonna try and figure out anyway if they can't afford to just book a trip. Which,
Gotcha.
geez,
I got you.
yeah.
Now, since we're getting close to the end, are we getting closer with the charity thing yet? Or would it
Yeah,
be
we
better-
are.
or would it be better to announce it next? next
We have spoken with Jason Olseth, who is the river keeper. The river
Right.
keeper is actually a human being. It's
Yeah.
a guy, we've gotten the write up back and forth a couple of times on what's going to be the raffle. So
Okay.
yeah, we're getting very much closer.
We're
Next
getting
time.
closer. Next
Yeah,
time
but
will be-
so
okay,
I
so
think
we'll-
the big bogey we're going to have is trying to pick a date we can all work with.
yeah,
They've already suggested October 13th and 14th,
okay.
which is a bit far out there, but you
it
know,
still give us time.
logistically,
And
you know,
again,
they just have so many other things going on there.
yeah. And we're trying to grow the Tuesday night, you know, the trout Tuesday nights.
Yep.
On. So that give us time to build it up and get going.
I think
Take
it's
some
smart
time.
to shoot for the fall.
So that's fine. So we'll announce it then, but it's going to be a great thing. So guys, listen, we're about 2 hours in. That's about. I know you guys need to go get some rest, and you definitely need to because you're crazy in the head right now.
Whatever, man.
Talking bass
Outfish
versus fly
all
rod.
of
I don't
you.
know what he's
I
talking
will
about.
outfish
He's
you.
done lost his damn
No
mind.
problem.
delirious
It's hard.
after 9:30.
It is. Listen, that Cherry Street is kicking in on him. Man.
I know.
That's why you got to have a Coke here. You got to pace yourself
Hey,
and all that.
man.
But anyway, listen, guys, thank you for coming back in. For those of you guys that watched, Blake, Tad, for piping in a lot of information. And I think what I'm going to be able to do with this show is now when I go back and I start cutting in reels and TikToks and all that and start getting that flowing out, people are going to start paying a little more attention now. Okay, we're doing this and we'll grow this and we'll get the Tuesday night trout episodes, which are going to be on the 3rd Tuesday of each month, right? Ain't that what we said?
I think
Yeah,
that's
we
what
talked
we
about
agreed with, yeah.
Third Tuesday of each month, the Tuesday nighter will be about fly fishing and trout. And so you guys get out there. David Weaver said it was an awesome show, and farmers appreciate you guys hanging.
Thank you guys.
And tell everybody about it. I know that a lot of people when we did the last one, we had a lot more views after the fact, and people, because Tuesday nights are busy, they know we do a Thursday night, so it's going to take a while to build this up live. But a lot of people are going back and watching it afterwards, and so encourage people to go back and watch it. A lot of great information given tonight, a lot of stuff that I didn't know, and again, that's why I do the show. It's just as much for me to learn as everybody else. I'm picking it up while everybody else is. So, thank you guys for coming up here. We're going to do it again. Thank you guys for watching. Blake running the board and all that. Thursday night, if you're into the bass game, and apparently this guy right here needs to watch it a little bit more because he's going to learn some stuff.
I'm coming out. I'm going to sit in.
Rob Jordan. He's
Talk some stuff.
Rob Jordan. You guys know that name from Lake Lanier. We're going to be talking spotted bass, big lakes, and all that. So that's Thursday night at 8. If not, you guys get out on the water this week or in the weekend. Be safe, number one. Enjoy the time you got out there, and take care of the resource. So we'll see you on the next one. We appreciate you guys.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Thank you.